Okay, we're back on the live stream. Finally, some form of consistency. Some form of consistency with the live streams. That's my New Year's resolution to be more consistent with the live streams. He said, "Why hasn't this live started?" Micah, what are you playing at? What are you playing at, sir? Yeah, to be fair, the only reason I'm wearing this jacket is because my house is cold as hell. Even though my heating is on, I'm still freezing. So that's why. Otherwise, I'll just be wearing a t-shirt as usual. Because you guys know how I feel about dressing up for videos and live stream. It's kind of strange, considering I film in, my living room. As you guys can see, is literally my living room. There's my couch. It's a bit odd to just like wear a fucking suit or like a Rick Owens jacket just to be sat down in the middle of my living room. So yeah. I just dropped a video, bro. I'm back and can finally talk shit again. Oh, the ID on the jacket. So this is a barber jacket. This is I got this recently when I went to Pity because I did a panel for barber. So I was gifted this jacket. Yeah, really nice jacket. You can wear it in so many different ways. It's got so many different compartments. Like you can attach this bit, do it that way. There's zips on both sides. It's really cool, but it's like one of those traditional barber wax jackets. So yeah, really, really nice. The barber sorting you out. Before I start, what do you guys think of the collections? Just as a random kind of first thoughts before I go into my thoughts. What did you guys think of the LV, the Martine Rose, and the Botter collections? If you have any thoughts on any of those collections, what did you guys think? LV, silly but fun. Interesting. Interesting. LV, I have questions about. What questions do you have? I'm curious. I always kind of like to test the temperature before I get into my thoughts. Not that it's going to change my mind, it's just out of intrigue. Martine, fun, fun, fun. LV was amazing. I have a lot of context I want to share, but want your take first. Interesting. LV seemed very American. Yeah, it definitely was. Definitely was. I love the Martine Rose show. Felt very fun. LV, well, I'm worried about all the cowboy boots we're going to see again. Someone say Rick on point. Yeah, I did like Rick, but I'm not talking about Rick today. I should be able to get to it in the coming weeks, though. Martine Rose soundtrack gave me 80s flashbacks. Yeah. I haven't actually seen the Kiko show. I haven't seen that yet. Love the Martine Rose collection. The Runway was refreshing. I'm curious about ideas of possible appropriations versus a recent scholarship about amazing black cowboys and intermarriage with Native Americans. That's a very good question, actually. That's a very, very good thing to bring up. Something I thought about actually when I first saw the collection and like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about using iconography of Native Americans in the context of $1 billion brand. I don't know how I feel about that. And I'm not too decided on how I feel about that. I like some of the Botter pieces, would definitely purchase. Martine Rose simply doesn't miss. Yeah, I mean, I love Martine Rose. I'm kind of biased though. When I'm biased, I'll tell you. To be fair, I'm objective about everyone, even though I love Martine Rose, but it's just that there's nothing that she does that there's even a reason for me to be critical about in a negative way, because there is nothing to be critical about in a negative way. So yeah, this just is what it is. Well, I'm going to read the comments for a few more minutes, and then we're going to go straight into the review for today. So the order of events is Louis Vuitton first, then Martine Rose, and then we're going to talk about Botter last. Then we're going to do our usual, conversation, and then I'll be out and I need to go to bed. So yeah, that's how we're going to do things today. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Kiko once you see it, if possible. Always love hearing your thoughts on him. Yeah. I mean, geez, I've been talking about Kiko Kostadinov for so long. I remember the first review I did on Kiko's work was I reviewed his Spring/Summer 20 collection. And that was like 5 years ago. God damn, I've been on YouTube for a long time. Jeez. But yeah, I love Kiko though. I definitely love Kiko. The brand has like gone many twists and turns over the years though. It started as a brand that was really more workwear inspired, and it was more about this fusion between tailoring and workwear and uniforms, and then it just became like something else completely. Appropriation versus appreciation will always be a tug of war, but I like the fact that Pharrell played with the idea America doesn't have a deep history in fashion with the most American historical. Okay, I see where you're coming from there. Okay, so anyway, that being said, I think it's time to jump straight into it. So let's talk about the Louis Vuitton Fall/Winter 24 collection. Of course, as you guys know, this is Pharrell Williams' third collection with Louis Vuitton. I mean, Louis Vuitton is a massive brand at this point. Last year, they became the first 20 billion euro brand in the world, which is insane. And that 20 billion euros just means that they made 20 billion euros in revenue in 1 year. So they became the first luxury brand to do that. So LV, the biggest brand in fashion, the most relevant brand in fashion, the brand that makes the most money. And clearly, from a financial standpoint, they know what they're doing. It's the reason why they hired Pharrell, because if we're being very honest, when you're a 20 billion euro brand, how do you top that? You have shareholders and people that still want the brand to grow, even though you make like sickening amounts of money. And the only way to do that really is just more fame, more interesting people, more numbers, more eyeballs. And I think with Pharrell, that is what you get at Louis Vuitton, because sometimes I know fashion is an art and I appreciate fashion as an art, but sometimes we can't forget that these things don't exist separate from billion-dollar businesses. Sometimes we like to pretend or behave like, the art of fashion and the artfulness of the things that designers design is separate to the major capitalism within the system of fashion that they exist in. So it's always something, that should be pointed out. And of course, for this collection, this Louis Vuitton Fall/Winter 24 collection, a lot of it was about the root of an American Western wardrobe. And it also explored ideas of workwear. Of course, there are many collaborations that happen in this collection. There are collaborations with, Dakota and Lakota artists, Native American communities, and they made pieces across the collection, whether they were, sewing on flowers on pieces, or they were, collaborating on parts of the soundtrack. And they even made some of the bags. Some of the bags were painted, and then some of them had this embroidery that they did. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the Runway show on the screen, and then we're going to just run through it. Someone said, thank you for saying the business take. Yeah, because it's so true. I don't know if it's we like to pretend, or maybe sometimes we forget that these designers are designing for companies that make tens of billions a year. So it's very relevant to not separate the two things. I think you're doing the whole thing a disservice if you do that. But yeah, let's talk about this Western aesthetic, because some of the criticism I saw online was, Pharrell Williams is trying to do Western cosplay and blah, 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 blah. I don't necessarily agree with that take. I think that Western fashion is nothing new in the realm of fashion. So many designers in fashion have, been inspired by this. We've seen D-Squared do this. We've seen Virgil Abloh tackle this. We've seen, Pia Moss, who's also had a collection that was talking about the fact that some of the most original cowboys were actually Black people. That is kind of the understanding that Pharrell Williams is coming from in this collection, talking about how, you know, a lot of the cowboys were Native Americans and they were blacks, especially in the 18th century. I think there was a stat I read that in the 19th century, sorry, that in the 1800s, the black cowboys actually accounted for 25% of all cowboys, which is insane if you think of the percentage of black people as a population of, you know, America at the time. That is actually a very, very insane stat. So yeah, it's all very interesting. Even people that aren't coming from the perspective of, okay, there was a time when black and Native Americans were most of the cowboys, not the cowboys we associate with now. There's more of a, like, let's say, European perspective to what cowboys are. We've seen Raf Simons do that. We've seen people like Bodie have their takes on the Western aesthetic. Even Ralph Lauren, damn near, kind of created his own caricature of a whole sort of Western / British, American meets old British tailoring sort of aesthetic. So it's just been done, is my point. So many people have done it. But I do find it weird that people say Pharrell doing it is cliche when we don't think of what Ralph Lauren does as cliche, which I think in many ways is actually very cliche. Just taking like a very caricature understanding of what old English heritage and culture is and just slapping that into a brand. That is very cliche. But Ralph Lauren doesn't get the same criticism that I would say Pharrell is getting for the same things. But anyway, Dami, how are you and what do you think of the collection?
Yo, what is good? What is good? I was excited and I was low key rushing, but I couldn't rush. But yeah, what I thought about the collection. The collection's all right, to be honest. I like. People are saying that it's better than Virgil's second collection also. So that's what I saw. As well as
Right.
I've seen a myriad of things, right? But we're talking about the collection in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
And just to like echo your sentiments, what I've seen from Pharrell, or at least like in this specific genre of it, like because we also have Visvim, we have like a myriad of Japanese brands also that do the Americana aesthetic, as well as like you said, Ralph Lauren and the kind. So to point at Pharrell and like nitpick on his referencing, especially when there is this new train of thought that Black Americans are Native Americans in quotes, is the term, and Black Americans being cowboys, etc., right? So being the foundation and fundamental Black people or people of America is like kind of like the quote. So it's par for the course of a Black American to do this, especially when there is a new philosophy that is surrounding this and is derived from this. So I'm one for the reference. So just to say, the reference in and of itself, it makes sense to me as like a philosophical empowerment type of thing, but also the idea that like I understand, but also the idea that Pharrell is being a caricature is also a bit silly to me. But just to speak about on the clothes, I enjoy the color palette, I enjoy the accessories, and I'm more understanding more the way that Pharrell is trying to go in the direction that he's actually taking in this type of stay that he has at Louis Vuitton. So it's quite interesting to me, fairly.
Yeah, I think that, like I said earlier, like the critique of, you know, it being cliche, I just find it a bit weird considering other people that I would say there's a lot of stuff that you could say is cliche, like Ralph Lauren is like my biggest culprit. He isn't given the same critiques, which I just find strange. And I think when it comes to this Western aesthetic, because it's so overplayed and because so many designers have done it, my first thought is, okay, what's different about this? How are you, you know, making it different? What is the point of reference that's a bit different to what we usually see, that would differentiate this from all the other Western inspired collections I've seen? And I think what actually is slightly different is the Native American perspective on it, because I've definitely seen a solely Black perspective on those being a big majority of like cowboys at a point and a high percentage of cowboys being Black. But I haven't really seen a Native American perspective. Which there are obviously deep and dark reasons why a lot of these people are cowboys. if we're going back to like slavery and like those times, because the jobs that the cowboys were doing, like rearing cattle and, you know, taking care of the horses and stuff, a lot of it wasn't by choice. They had like masters who made them do these things. And so you're almost commenting on stuff that's actually quite deep. And that's why I think also Pharrell managed to weave in ideas of workwear. There's that jacket that we just saw that people are saying it looks like a Carhartt jacket. There's also so many references to just workwear in general. If you think of even the Timberland boots, the fact that they collaborated with Timberland in this collection makes a lot of sense in the context of everything being about workwear. And if you think of hip hop really is like, they've adopted Timberland boots as almost like workwear, but within the realm of hip hop. So it's quite interesting. You're talking about workwear, you're also talking about an American aesthetic, and then you have a collaboration with Timberland. And it's also a collection that's going to be boots heavy because it's Western inspired. You're going to have a lot of cowboy boots, so why not add some Timberland boots in there? I thought that was a really good touch. I think something that I thought was missing in this collection actually was a collaboration with Wrangler, because I was thinking the whole time, like, Wrangler is the quintessential, like, workwear, Americana aesthetic kind of brand. And you could have woven that into this collection. I feel like that was a very, very, very huge missed opportunity in this collection. And it's funny because, like, even if you think of what is a wrangler, like, what does that mean? Those are people that also take care of livestock and animals and tend to horses and often work for cowboys. And obviously the brand itself, I think in the 1940s, I think they hired a Polish tailor who worked closely with cowboys, and they actually got this person to design jeans that were suitable for use on a rodeo. So if we're going to talk about Western aesthetic and Americana, we need that Wrangler collaboration with Louis Vuitton. I think that would have been the most, I don't know, like just the best thing to do, the thing that would make the most sense. But hey, we missed on that one and we moved forward with that. But anyway, any more thoughts before I ramble on?
Yes. Yeah, no. So in terms of I hope you can hear me. My internet just keeps being spotty for some reason.
Oh no, I can hear you fine. Perfectly.
But in terms of the aesthetic, and not just aesthetic, but the philosophy around it. So I think you dipped out for a bit, but another point to make was not just the philosophy of being foundationally Black American, but also the other jobs that cowboys were doing back in the day, which was scalping, right? So it was actually hunting other slaves and people that are trying to be free and people that are draft dodging, so on and so forth, right? And there were Native Americans and Black people who actually had these jobs, and they did these jobs to get their papers and to free their families and all of these other things, right? And what was happening in the show, like just a little note. So there are people in the show that are walking the show that are Black and American of the kind that are either not just celebrities, but there are families in there. So do you know who Deion Sanders is? So Shador Sanders and his brother were walking the show also, and they have been like one of these big American families, Black American families that are major celebrities right now. Or should I say like influencers or like, but Deion Sanders is like the figure, right? He's like the matriarch also, or should I say patriarch almost. So he's like one of those Black dads that is doing something major in America. I also wanted to say are we going to move on from Louis Vuitton after this? Because I actually wanted to say something directly about how Pharrell is conducting himself at Louis Vuitton.
No, say it.
All right then. So I've been thinking about this millionaire stuff, right? And the made to order stuff. And part of me believes that this is some sort of marketing ploy. Because these bags are made to order and they aren't necessarily made for anything. But I've seen it in news that isn't necessarily news. Like I've seen it in places where people who I know don't even follow fashion will look at it. And then that made me understand, or should I say, think about the fact that Pharrell's from the art and watch world. And what the watch world does and what the art world does is make these limited pieces that are super complicated to make, but also are statements. So Pharrell also wears Richard Mile's or Richard Milles, depending on how you want to say it. And these are $1 million watches. These are like millionaire watches. So he like rubs shoulders with these people that buy Basquiat's and RMs and watch Formula One. So he understands the mindset of them. So, but also he's talking to the people who find this Louis Vuitton aesthetic aspirational. So I understand not just people wanting the Black American aesthetic or Pharrell's aesthetic, but these are people that grew up on Pharrell and inherited their wealth and so on and so forth. So there's this like in terms of an intersection, there are people that listen to his music and just want to have things from Pharrell, as well as see Pharrell as some sort of PR almost because of his affiliations with RM and the watches that he had. So that's just like kind of my thoughts on that. But yeah, there's so many things to say in terms of the merchandise of Louis Vuitton, but I'll leave that for another time.
What do you think about what do you think? Yeah, I have so much to say, but I don't want to ramble on. But what do you think about him bringing the camouflage back? Now he's calling it camouflage, which is very interesting because it's in a different tone. This pixelated print thing going on. He's kind of turning it into the Pharrell Williams Louis Vuitton signifier. What do you think about him really pushing that till now?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, because that was part of my notes also. So based on this, what I know with my ear to the streets is that you know that Louis Vuitton have a store in New York, right? And in that store, you can't keep the Black people away. Like there's people that are literally at the store just to be at the store. It's almost like a Supreme-esque thing, right? But also there's these nouveau riche or people with money, Black Americans that, and maybe not just Black Americans, right? But it's New York, isn't it? So it's whatever the mix of New Yorkers are that enjoy this, and they see it as Pharrell's thing in and of itself anyways. So there are people who are buying into this via the pixelated Louis Vuitton look anyways. And China's also optimistic about their installation with Pharrell. And then Selfridges London, which also has the Louis Vuitton installation. I'm going there soon. I don't know if you want to go, but just to say that these rich people, they love it. And if we know anything about merchandise, as we both do, if they're loving it, why are you gonna stop?
Right.
But I know, namely, right, people that enjoy it, see it as Pharrell's thing, and they believe that, like I said earlier, his second collection is better than Virgil's second collection, and they think he's gonna do way better than Virgil, so they're buying into it right now.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely don't think that his collection was better than Virgil's. I don't believe that. But from a perspective of, you know, like what sells and their bottom line, that's what they need. Because I do think there is because Pharrell is so famous and because Louis Vuitton is such a big brand, the kind of conversations that we're having is really for like a fashion forward audience. Majority of people won't even have this kind of conversation. They won't ever hear about these kind of thoughts. So really, they're fans of Pharrell, and whatever Pharrell does, they're like, just the fact that Pharrell, who they've grown up on, is now creative director or head of menswear, let's say, artistic director of menswear at Louis Vuitton, to them, that's just, it's always going to be amazing. It doesn't matter. And anything before, which they might not have too good of a reference to, is not as good as what Pharrell is doing now. That's just what they're going to think, which is fair enough. Like, fair enough. You can't control that. That is what it is. My thing that I wanted to ask you actually is, what do you think about the context of using Native American motifs in the context of selling it under a multi-billion-dollar brand that's owned by an even bigger multi-billion-dollar conglomerate? What do you think about that? Even though I know they collaborated with Native Americans, I know that they had models that were Native Americans and all that stuff to try and be authentic. But what do you think of the fact that regardless, it's still in the context of it being sold by a French European house?
What do I actually feel about it?
Yeah.
What do we feel about Dior using the Ukrainian women and widows to sell garments.
Mm.
I'll wait for the chat to, you know what I'm saying, do that thing.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. It just makes me a bit. Do you know why it makes me a bit?
Okay, all right.
Do you know why?
Do
you know why? It's because right now, obviously, what everyone is talking about in politics is, Palestine and like the Jewish and Palestinian conflict, right? But one conversation that is not, because the conversation that people are having is about, okay, who has a right to the land? And something I've always thought about when I watch CNN and I watch all these things is like, okay, but all of you are inhabiting a land that none of you own either. You, like the Native Americans, that's their land. And all of you are like, oh my God, I can't believe this, this. And you're all literally sitting on people's land that you don't own and that has been taken away from them. So like, as just like a frame, it's always weird looking at it from that perspective. So when you think of that context in what's going on in the world, then to have Native American ideas kind of packaged and sold by $1 billion brand, I don't know. I just feel a bit weird about it. But anyway, what do you think?
All right, I was just making sure that, because I've got the live over here. But here's my thing, right? So, and this goes into New Wave American philosophy, right? So there are Black Americans, and then there's a sector of Black Americans, and then there's also the East Coast of Black Americans, right? And then in that sphere, there are people who believe that they're Native Americans and say they have Native American blood. And Virginia is right there. Pharrell also done a Timberland collaboration. The flagship and the people that actually like what Pharrell's doing are also in New York, so on and so forth. It's not by happenstance or mistake. So there isn't a part of me that would believe that Pharrell doesn't think, or there is a universe where Pharrell doesn't think that he's probably Native American as well. Or he would have Native American blood, heritage, anything of this kind, right? So what I think is irrelevant in this particular instance. But in terms of when you put the European lens on it, you do enter me into the conversation, right? So, because I cover Louis Vuitton like extensively. So what I feel about Louis Vuitton doing it is the same way that Virgil brought literally like the essence of Blackness in America, right? Through the Ghanaian American lens, and pretty much handed it over to Louis Vuitton, and then minimized whatever action that his Off-White was doing, so that Louis Vuitton can be propped up to the $20 billion corporation that it is today. And that is kind of my thing. So it's like, obviously, this is that one show. I don't know how much is going to permeate through the shows thereafter. But when it comes to Blackness and people wanting to feel Black American, Pharrell gives that to people. Pharrell gives people the clips. He gives people Jay-Z. He gives people all of these things that like have this hood street drug dealer. Like he says it himself, right? He loves when like Nori talks about drug dealer stuff, and like he was apart from that, but he's also like, you know, he really loves that. So he's a voyeur just as some of these other people are. So in that sense, he kind of relates to what these white people feel in a sense, right? Not to say that that is his total character, but there is a sentiment there, right? And within all of that, there is this show, right? Within that context, there is a show, and there's the show of being American, wanting to feel foundationally American, wanting to have claim to the land, and all of these other things, right? Because, you know, Black Americans did build literally pretty much everything in America, right?
100.
So that is kind of one of those things. Whether, you know, he's Native American or not, he comes from that heritage. So in that sense, he's allowed to do it. But
so I think
Vuitton exploiting it is part of the course.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say it's not really more of a Pharrell thing. It's more of the fact that LVMH is a European conglomerate and LV is a French house. and it's in from that lens, not necessarily from for Pharrell, but it's more like Pharrell, and also that being on top is where it's a bit. I don't know how I feel about this. Doesn't mean Pharrell can honestly do what he wants. That's up to him. I just thought it just made me a bit. It made me feel a bit weird, especially in the context of it being a European brand. It being through the lens of a European brand was just a bit, I don't know how I feel about that. But it is important to obviously reference that Pharrell is from Virginia. And if you think of Virginia in terms of cowboys, Virginia played like a massive role in the development of cowboy culture in the US, like a huge role. And to quote something that he said in an interview with Vogue, he said, when you see cowboys portrayed, you only see a few versions. You never really get to see what some of the original cowboys look like. They looked like us. They looked like me. They looked black. They looked Native American. So that's what he said to Vogue. But yeah, I don't know. Just the context of packaging this up for selling it to the 1% through the lens of a French brand is where I thought, okay, this is a bit dicey. But yes, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, like this is the thing. Like he enters Louis Vuitton in the conversation to be able to reference this outside of him now because it's part of their lexicon, and that is the same way with Virgil. Because remember those iridescent bags that Virgil made? Like I think that was his second collection, fairly. So I don't know how this is gonna be better than that, but anyways, but like, and how those were like just jumping off the shelves, and then there was the summer fashion week, I believe. That was the either the one before or the one after Pop Smoke came there, right? Or should I say the one before or the one that Pop Smoke came to, and that like famous photo came out. So it's like he's following in that trend of like involving Louis Vuitton and involving the European eye and the European gaze, and not just them, right? The Chinese, the Middle Eastern, and so on and so forth. So it's a world stage. When you're working for Louis Vuitton, you're working on the world stage. And as much as we're thinking about merchandise, we also have to think about, you know, what are we delivering and what are we actually giving away, right? That's the other thing. What are we, as people, as Black people, like we can say as Nigerians or as Ghanaians, as Black Americans, what are we giving away to these European houses that we will never get back in terms of value, right? And then that's when you have to think about how much are you benefiting and how much are they profiteering off you, right? Because at the end of the day, they're going to profit off this for another 100 years. So when we're all gone.
Also, Derek is laughing about cowboys in Virginia. If you look into it historically, yes, there were cowboys in Virginia. And the cowboys in Virginia are actually very influential to spreading the culture across the USA. Like, literally do research into it. Micah, what do you have to say, sir?
Just a quick point. Of just expanding on some stuff we were discussing in the chat. From what I can see, I'm pretty certain that Pharrell's approach to LV at the moment is crafting a sellable collection around his own personal style. I think that a lot of these narratives and themes come into the conversation once he's picked which aspect of his style that he plans to expand upon in that collection. And I feel like whatever's shown next, so spring summer 25, I'm pretty sure that that collection will kind of solidify this theory I have, because when you look at anything in the collection, it looks like something straight out of Pharrell's wardrobe. And you can say that for his debut. You can say that for this collection. I want you to pull up that picture of, if you just type into Google like Pharrell Chanel Met Gala. If you look at
I know the look you're talking about. Yeah.
But pull it up for the chat. I mean, so it's on the screen. It literally, I'm telling you, if we could swap those any logos for LV,
continuing,
and you, everyone would be like, oh yeah, this is part of his LV collection. So I think because he's so loved, on a global scale, and he has a very, very, very deep understanding of personal style and taste. His taste level is insane. So because he has that level of understanding of like personal style and taste and everything, it means that he's now exporting his personal style to us as consumers. That's his goal,
Right.
especially as they're trying to tackle the Asian market, China, Korea, Japan, where in recent years, you know, there's been an abundance of wealth there that is spending on luxury. And that happens to be a demographic that loves Pharrell because of Nigo and because of the effect that his hip hop culture had on Japan in the early 2000s. That's their target audience. So they're just selling Pharrell to us as consumers. So I think next collection we'll see there'll be another pocket of his style, his personal style, that they're gonna manage to build an entire collection around and sell to us. I think that's what it's gonna be. And that differs from Virgil's approach, which was more around, you know, specific dialogues and conversations regarding like race,
Yeah,
stereotypes.
Virgil was exploring hella like, what does it mean to be an African immigrant growing up in the US, tourist versus purist? What does ownership mean in the digital age?
Yeah.
He was asking some like serious questions.
Yeah, for sure. But that's what I think anyway. I'll let you guys say what you think.
Caleb, what did you have to say?
I still think Pharrell's superior with accessories. The bags were amazing. The Courier Lozine, like I love that he kind of flipped like the classic trunk that was like iconic way back in like 1854 when the Maison started.
Yep.
The bag is mad.
Micah, stop flexing.
It's mad. Yeah, no, I love the bags. Like I think like even when he was at Chanel, like that was kind of like his bread and butter, just doing like accessories and bags and whatnot. But I feel like as far as like the ready to wear goes, I'm curious to see like how well that translates like in sales, like and who's actually going to be like purchasing that and wearing that.
Yeah, even to talk about the bag, something I will say, this is back to Micah. Micah, you can speak about this after, but I will say that the bags definitely are amazing, and especially when you see them in person, like the detail that goes into them. Like, I've seen like Micah's bags because he was filming at my house. So I've seen like both of his Speedy bags, and like the details are insane. So Micah, talk about kind of how he's pushing Speedies as like more menswear bags, making the sizes bigger and all that sort of stuff, making them more colorful and stuff like that.
I think it just ties into the general theme I was talking about of like Pharrell wanting to sell luxury, because that is, if you're like a big fan of him, which is what I imagine why LV hired him in the first place. If you're a big fan of him at this point, you're now suddenly a big fan of like uber luxury and that thing of like taste making and taste level, like we were talking about earlier. So for all his collection, the goal has been to raise that level of luxury at LV. That means, you know, finding new ways to add even more details to the ready to wear, to the accessories. It's stuff like, I mean, in the first collection, we saw the pearls on absolutely everything. In terms of like, there was all kinds of embroidery that they don't normally do. And with that, they've increased the prices as well. But that's kind of
prices are insane. Oof.
The prices are unreal, absolutely unreal, absolutely unreal. But that's what they're going for now. So that extends to the accessories. The reason I think part of why the accessories have been so nice thus far is because they're just putting like an unprecedented amount of like detail and luxury into them, as they should be as a luxury house. But that's what they're going for now, I think.
I mean, at that price point, there's no excuse not to be honest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. But I mean, even when you look at like the close-ups of even this collection, the devil's in the details for sure with Pharrell's collections, I'd say. That's definitely one of the main things they're pushing.
So do you necessarily think it's a good or a bad thing that like Pharrell, like you said, with the ready to wear is literally presenting the kind of stuff that he would wear? So it's almost like relaying his personal wardrobe into a collection for Louis Vuitton. Is that necessarily a positive thing or a negative thing in your eyes? Not that it has to be, just what do you think?
I think it's just a thing. I don't think it's inherently positive or negative, because we see designers do this all the time. I mean, that's one of the foundations of creativity, in the sense of like wanting to, within the fashion space, wanting to move the needle by, you know, creating something that interests you. And who's not more interested in something outside of their personal style? You know what I mean? But I know which approach I prefer. So far, anyway, I was more interested in some of the conversations Virgil was having towards the end of his time at LV. But I just think they're both
Michael's he's jumping in and out, mate.
They're both valid approaches to design. So
okay, that's fair enough. What I do want to do is actually look at some of the details, especially on Vogue Runway, because you get to see close up like some of the looks. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I mean, at the end of the day, every luxury brand now, this is not a Louis Vuitton thing, and this is something we talk about all the time, is kind of going for a richer clientele. Everyone has pushed their prices up, like everyone. It's almost weird that a Birkin bag used to be the height of luxury, and in some ways it still is, but some of these bags are so expensive, they're almost competing with Birkins these days, and it's actually insane.
No, a lot of brands are moving their pricing to compete with Hermes. That's like the new. I think that's the new strategy a lot of brands have. I hope, hopefully, one day I'll release a video on this. But yeah, I think they're just trying to introduce a new class of luxury, like super luxury. I feel like Danny knows a lot about this.
Yeah.
Actually, you know.
Well, this
go on, Dami.
In this particular instance, like what I see for in this luxury sector, like at least the way that it's being spoken about, or should I say the way that's being delivered to the public, right, is that people want separation, right? So when the first instance, or should I say the first luxury price point was introduced, it was so that other people couldn't reach it, like regular people couldn't reach it, and there was this almost, it was a separation of class, wasn't it? Like when we start talking about merchandise and all of these other things. But now today, it's like, okay, what is the luxury lifestyle, right? Because if you save up enough, everybody can go to Loom, everybody can go Indonesia, everybody can do, like, you know, the jet set lifestyle is not for rich people alone anymore. So now there is other sentiments, right? So when we look at it, there's like parts of our lives, at least the way that we live our lives is you pick which part of your lifestyle you want to be luxurious. So like for some people maybe perfume, some people maybe the interior design of furniture that they have, some people maybe the bags that they have, or even the trainers, the amount of trainers someone has, right? Someone can have £1,000, or should I say £10,000 worth of trainers in their house and nobody would blink an eye, right? And that is the way that this thing is grown, right? But in terms of actually living that way, there are the rich people that want to live as hobos, and then there are the rich people that want to have the full depth of the separation between what you can do and what they can do, right? And when it comes to Birkins were quite hyped in, like, that was 2022, 2023, right? And in that time, it was almost a case study of, oh, so we're allowed to put our bags this high, and it's not just for the rich mums and all of these other things. So the age range of Birkins dropped drastically. But then obviously Birkins isn't as accessible as some other things. So then Chanel started doing it, and I believe like the general Chanel was more expensive than the general Birkin, right? And then obviously Vuitton, because Pharrell's doing men's and women's bags, or it can be unisex, or it can be, no, bags are genderless anyways. But in terms of the ideas of it, people see the bags as a luxury statement. Like the way that Michael was even flexing earlier, it was one of these things that if that was his idea or identity of luxury, that's what you can do. However, there is the level of separation someone has, right, in terms of the art they own and the pieces that they own, right? So it's not just in watches. It's not just in, oh, you can go to a Beyonce concert and not blink an eye, or you can fly out to this one time only thing. And, you know, people save up for many, many years to go to a Super Bowl. But then in terms of who's going to be in the box seats, that's a totally different conversation. So
Right.
in terms of luxury lifestyle and the people that are able to live it, the bags being this high of a price is just another level of separation between the rich and, you know, the people that live a middle class lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because that's
Do you
all it
find
is.
it
It's not.
funny?
Yeah,
Do
go.
you? So I was gonna say, do you find it funny that a lot of these luxury brands use funny wording in their marketing? Like they say things like accessible luxury, and it's funny because, kind of as you pointed out, historically and even now, it's still about separating themselves and being a level of luxury that isn't attainable. Because if it's too attainable, then people lose interest. There's no aspiration. And Bernard Arnault has said this: like there always needs to be aspiration, otherwise you lose the brand completely. And if you think of some of these designers, even designers that I love from like what they've done in fashion history, like if we're talking about, let's say, designers like Givenchy, people on Patreon will know this, where I talked about how Givenchy was one of the first people to actually recognize Hollywood and start dressing people like Audrey Hepburn and stuff. But before then, even Givenchy was like snobbish, and all the other designers didn't want to dress Hollywood actresses because they were like, we'd rather dress the real aristocrats rather than dress their imitations. That's kind of how they used to talk about it. And even when they finally managed to convince, you know, Givenchy, okay, this is a good idea, you can get famous from dressing these people, they're really big in America. He initially thought that he was dressing Katharine Hepburn, who was like a massive American actress at the time. Audrey was still at the start of her career. So when he found out it was Audrey, he's like, who's this rando that they're telling me to dress? Who is this rando? This person's not important enough for my brand. Until he found out who like Audrey was, and Audrey was from a good family. Then he was like, okay, maybe. That is how snobbish some of these designers are. And sometimes we forget that this huge level of snobbery is kind of like the basis of what makes these brands desirable. If that makes sense.
Exactly. And as we transitioned from that kind of like logo-centric maximalist period we had in 2018, 2019, 2017 with like Alessandro Michele, Supreme, the real boom of Louis Vuitton, Virgil. I think that's how we've ended up in this situation where now, and as fashion in general has become like more mainstream in the sense of social media, I think that's how we've ended up in this scenario where now, because everybody is consuming these luxury brands and it's completely diluted that sense of like who's rich, who's not rich, blah, blah, blah. Some of these brands are already saying, okay, well, let's just introduce another level. And this level we introduce is for those people who are actually rich, blah, 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 blah. Because when you start making, when your default for a bag is, you know, 10K, 15K, 20K, at that point, on paper anyway, everyone buying it should only be rich people, as opposed to, it wasn't that long ago where, you know, you could grab a luxury bag for like a K, if not less. It really wasn't that long ago. It's interesting how quickly and exponentially things are just like shooting towards the stars in regards to pricing and like exclusivity.
And I think it's a luxury goods thing across the board. Even if we go outside of fashion, if you think of like cars, the price of cars has skyrocketed. There's obviously issues with like microchips and stuff, but that does not justify the way prices have like shot up completely. And it's kind of similar across the luxury board. Even this is a conversation that people have with like Rolex and the prices of Rolex going up. Rolex watches. So it's just a very interesting thing that everyone is thinking that their luxury items are too attainable, and it's like messing up the aspiration of these brands. So to keep the same aspiration, they just need to raise the prices.
So there is so what I was talking about earlier was the middle class of luxury, right? Which is the people who will pick a segment of their lifestyle to be luxurious, where be it, you know, the amount of times a year they fly out, the amount of luxury bags that they have, or the amount of perfumes that they have. so on and so forth, or even like luxury watches. That's like what I would dub the middle class of luxury. There is then obviously the upper class, but then there is the uber wealthy and the uber rich. Now, in terms of supply chain, based on the way that products are manufactured, there was a reason for people had to have prices inflated. However, because that has gone down, but then there was still a rise in the amount of people that were buying luxury goods, the prices have just stabilized at that level. And we're not going to see the prices go down because luxury doesn't necessarily move that way, right? And this has happened across industry. So, like, let's say, in farming, it's happened in all of these areas where it's like inflation has gone up like it's about 35% increase in the like lifestyle or the individual things that you'll buy. So even Vaseline or things of that nature has gone up by like 35p or even like 80p or whatever it is, right? I saw Vaseline for £3.50 the other day, and it used to be £1. But point being is that there was a supply chain issue, but now that issue is kind of resolved, I was reading the article today, and because people are still buying their goods, the companies don't care. Even though they should put them down, they're not going to put them down.
Right, because so the issues that did exist aren't there anymore. So, but they've just kept the prices high anyway.
Wage has to go up, which is what we should be fighting for. I do believe I shared it on I don't know whether I shared it on Twitter or not, but that was quite an important article, and I can't believe it just came up in this conversation today. But yeah, like that's real.
Yeah, but that's why everyone's striking. Like in the UK, all the train workers are always striking. TfL, they're always striking. I went to Florence recently for Pity, and I had to change my flight because the day I was supposed to go, I just got this notification that, there's going to be like strike action and no one's going to be at the airport. So then I had to make my flight the day earlier. And fair enough, they should be, fighting for these things because these companies have raised these prices. The issues are gone. The price is still high. So where are these profits going? They're not going to the employees in any sort of way. So they should rightfully fight for that.
Yeah, and this is the reality of it, right? So where in being middle class, you think about how can I make this money back? The money that I'm spending, how is it going to come back to me? There is a class of people that don't worry about money coming back to them because it just exists with them. And that is that's the level of separation that they have. But how do they identify, how do they show that level of separation to people? And, that is really the point. Just to go back to the bags thing. So, yeah. And that's who Bernard Arnault talks to, and it's working. Like, they don't care what price it is because they'll buy it anyways.
Oh, apparently, I don't know how true this is, but I'm fairly certain it's true. Apparently, they sold 50 of that millionaire bag.
No way.
Apparently, they sold 50.
No way. What?
Yeah.
No way. 50.
That low-key sounds about right.
Making 50 million on 50 bags is actually insane. Like,
I would actually put a cap on the amount of bags that they were allowed to make so that the allure can go up. And then the value of the bags that went out, it just skyrockets. And then 5 years from now, you see at Christie's or Sotheby's selling for 10, 20 million. And then
probably
Pharrell's law goes through the roof, innit? Every piece on this collection or that collection goes up tenfold. Same thing with Virgil. Like, without a death needing to occur, right? So, yeah. Like, the Virgil, I swear the Louis Vuitton dunks, went for $1 million anyways. Wait, how much did they get sold for? Wait.
I'm not sure about that.
It was a couple hundred pounds. It was something like that. Give me a sec. Wait.
Maybe the Air Force, maybe, but
yeah. Wait, give me a sec.
Caleb, did you have anything to add?
Oh yeah. So yeah, actually, the Air Forces I think did end up going they auctioned off for hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is actually
they like Virgil's, like his personal ones, or like what?
I don't think they were his personal ones.
No, they were from the Sorry, Caleb, you say.
No. Go ahead.
Were they samples or something?
No, they were part of the run that they made.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, they were
They
just
were
like,
No.
part of the run.
Okay, no. What it was where the runway had like 47 different Air Force Louis
Mhm.
Vuitton Air
Yeah,
Force.
yeah.
I think 10 different ones actually got put into production and sold to the general public. Then there were like the rest, the other 30 that just didn't get made at all. So the only ones that existed were like samples. And the
Oh
most
yeah, so the
popular
samples,
one
yeah.
was
Okay.
the one that had like the damier all over it. It came in like an LV orange trunk and
Mhm.
Nike, blah 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 blah. And I think that one auctioned off like tons of money. I don't know how
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, so the one that had the special trunk that like actually came with the shoes, that one I think ended up going for the most money out of all of them.
Yeah, it sold for more than 100,000. The
Yeah.
total raised 23 million or 25.3 million at Sotheby's. So yeah,
Damn.
so
What do you guys
I knew there was
like-
a million in there somewhere. But
Yeah.
shout out
What do you
to
guys
shout out
think
to
of
Yeah,
just
anyway, you guys can have a chat. There's a huge spider that just appeared, so I need to kill it before it jumps on me during the stream.
what do you guys think though? Just like where do you see like the longevity for Pharrell like at LVMH? Because when I think of LVMH, I just think of like a maison that just the sustainability part is kind of like hard to see because the shareholders and everybody like wants to see constant growth, and like I just how do you guys think Pharrell is gonna deliver that?
Well, at the moment, from what I can see, there is growth. So as far as they're concerned, he's doing his job. From what I know anyway. Because that first debut collection, to my knowledge, has sold pretty well and to the markets that they thought it would sell to. A lot of this stuff was sold out before it even hit the stores. It was like made to order and things like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm pretty sure they're just trying to target like the Chinese and Asian markets anyway, which is why they keep flying over there and doing. Even that recent Vogue interview that he did was in China at the Chinese. At one of
The pre-fall collection.
That's where the money is right now for them. So that's who they care about the most, and it seems to be working over there. So I think, as far as they're concerned, if he keeps doing that, they're happy.
Yeah.
Personally, I think this type of luxury world that we're in right now, to me, it doesn't make sense in the sense of like, I just don't, my head can't wrap around how prices can keep going up and up and up. Like, surely at some point it just physically has to stop. I don't really get it, but
Yeah.
you know, I'll find out in 10 years, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like my question too, just like looking at like seeing if Pharrell can actually like sustain, this type of
I don't think it's about Pharrell or not, though, funnily enough, because you could say that, you could argue the same thing about Virgil, no? That's like being like, oh, because Virgil, it's just lots of people preferred Virgil's designs, so they don't make those same comments. But like, I mean, LV were still raising the prices when Virgil was there. Not as much, but they were still raising the prices. I don't think the conversation is about, oh, is it Pharrell, is it not? It's just about, is what Pharrell's doing working for them? Oh, it is, okay, we'll keep him on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to see like how the Maison like will look in 3 to 4 years. Because like I'm also thinking about like Nicholas Geschker, who's been, I mean, he was at Balenciaga before, but like he's been
He
at
just signed a
LVMH.
5-year contract.
Yeah, and he's been there for so long, and like just in like my opinion, just like when I'm like working or I'm in the store, like all of the women's stuff, like it sits like, and I just feel like
women's is a weird. Oh, okay. You still work there now? Is that what you're saying?
So I started there in 2021. Yeah, and it's been like what, like almost 3 years.
So surely you have good info on like how things are going in regard to
Sales.
I mean, are people interested in Pharrell stuff in Europe from what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different where I am because like I'm in San Diego, so like I feel like the market here and just like what like the merchandising team is like actually like sending us, it varies obviously versus like when you're somewhere like New York or like LA or Las Vegas where like you have like a more client centric like celebrity centric environment. Like I feel like those are the places that get like a lot more like show pieces, But I don't know. I feel like the market is just so different here. So it's kind of hard to like gauge what's gonna hit. Like for somebody like me, I feel like it'll hit, but then sometimes like for the average person buying it, it's a lot of like moms and like, you know, a lot of just, you know, miscellaneous, just regular people who don't like know anything about Virgil or Pharrell, or, you know, they just see it and they like it. So
I think for us as like more general high fashion consumers and like enthusiasts, I just think a lot of us underestimated the star power of Pharrell when we heard that he was appointed. So lots of us just thought about him as more of like any other celebrity, as opposed to what he actually represents to a lot of like Asian markets and hip hop markets and things like that. Like and especially because Virgil, in terms of like public status and design, was so revered by the end of his tenure, we also forget that like at the end of the day, when he was appointed, outside of hip hop, lots of people didn't even know who he was.
yeah.
Whereas Pharrell, again, when he was appointed, he's a household name. At the end of the day, my mum knows who Pharrell is, and that's what I base when it's a household name is.
Wait,
I think also
so
to the fact that he, I
can
mean,
can I say
no,
something?
go ahead, brother.
So
Go ahead.
so what you're saying, Michael, in like not so many words, is what I said was right a year ago.
What did you say a year ago? Remind me.
Oh, okay. No,
He
like
just wanted to suck himself off. It's cool.
What is it? What was our conversation?
I'm playing. But like I believe, like Michael, you said something that like really interested me, which was you don't see how the prices can just keep going up, and I think that's the point. As much as the rate of price hikes is going to slow down, the idea that these people have to care about the price is another thing entirely. It's like a philosophy they don't even live by. And obviously, like, you know, you hear terms like throw it in the bag. I don't look at the price tag. If I have to look at it, like all of these other things. But like, there are people that literally swear by that, and not in hip hop songs and not in like any small sentiments. There are the sheikhs, the people that, you know, work in China. There's, you know, the billionaires, like China, you know, the number of billionaires they have has dropped. However, that doesn't really matter, right? Because they're out of lockdown now. But in terms of where Pharrell reaches, these people, the people that live on this upper echelon, they don't care about the price because the price does not affect them whatsoever. And I'm not even just, and I said all of those other places, and I excluded America and England because, and Europe for the most part, because that isn't necessarily who he should be thinking about, like you were saying. So, but at the same time, the American market for Louis Vuitton is growing, which is like nuts because it's already huge anyways. Because I think they're their second biggest market. I'd have to look back again.
Yeah.
But yo, that's crazy that the market is actually growing. But yeah, there's people that live.
Your point is facts though, because like even historically, if you think of when brands started to scale, initially it was because of Japanese consumers. So when it was just okay, we're only going to cater to, you know, French aristocrats, these brands actually didn't make that much money.
Yeah.
Then they learned how to license out their stuff. Then they started making more money. Then they started selling to Japanese consumers and they started making more money. And it was like a slow thing. So it was actually when they started getting more and more involved in the American and Asian markets that they really saw some crazy growth. Before then, when it was just Europe, they weren't really making that much money. Like Europe is actually so tiny, like in the grand scheme of things, if we really think about it, these countries are tiny compared to the countries in Asia, compared to a country like the USA, which is huge. Like
Here's the
USA
thing,
is
though.
enormous.
Here's the thing, like wealth was concentrated here in a time up until like the Great Depression, right? And even somewhere thereafter. So the idea that and obviously Europeans had this very racially like and religiously fueled sentiment that they're gonna buy from these particular people, and they bought in quotes locally, but someone from their own country, and then when they wanted to be exotic, they bought from another country, and then that scope just went out. And America wasn't even in the picture at these times, even though America had their millionaires, right? But America wasn't in the picture. And then like you were saying, then Japan gets introduced to the market, and then the market gets bigger, and then that merchandising comes in. But nothing stopped Bernardo Arnault from figuring bigger than he was, for introducing and opening so many stores in these places. And not just that, right? Because we talk about LVMH as fashion, but they're not just a fashion house, or should I say a fashion conglomerate. They do everything.
Cosmetics, liquor,
yeah, so
watches.
precisely. So it's one of these things where,
and they basically Bernardo Arnault, like he damn near owns the like duty free market. Like he owns the biggest duty free companies too, and that was down to the start when he saw that, okay, when people are traveling, if they can buy stuff tax free, they'll buy more of it. And he got really involved in the few people that were involved in the tax free market, and he bought all of them out. So he has his hands literally everywhere you turn when it comes to luxury fashion, like every single facet.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I know there's people who will come into the store who like, they'll see something and they're like, you know what? I'm going to Europe, or I'm going here in a few weeks, a month anyway. I'm just going to wait till I get to Europe, where, you get your tax, what is it?
Refund,
When you get back.
Yeah, tax free, like you get a refund from the VAT or whatever,
Yeah, so I mean, I think that also like allows people to indulge a little bit more like overseas, and yeah.
Let me go through some of the comments to see what they're saying before we move on to Martine Rose. If you love fashion, if you created a solid wardrobe, if you know about quality, the quality of LV's collection in person is everything. Most people are buying pieces, not full collections. Yeah, most people will buy pieces. I mean, to be honest, obviously we do have to have this conversation, but I do find it kind of crazy that we do have to be like, oh yeah, Pharrell's quality is now actually really good. I don't think there should have ever been a time where any luxury brand made a low quality product, because it's also expensive. And the fact that only now a lot of these luxury brands are like fixing up the quality of their products, mainly because they've had price hikes, so it's almost like crazy not to, is actually insane that we're having this conversation in the first place.
It's true though. I mean, the like repair process, I feel like a lot of the things that I see too, they are like older like products. So we have a lot of people come in that want to maybe get like a 10-year-old like Keepall or something, like things that definitely need to be touched up over time. But I feel like now the quality should be like superfluous, and it's especially for the price. I mean, the new Speedies are like 9K, and I just feel like if they're not lasting you, like if you're having issues a year or 2 years in, like a lot of these brands, like their bags, they're already having issues like 1 or 2 years in, and it kind of just makes it hard to justify paying that premium for luxury if you can't use your bag every day.
Yeah, I totally agree. Anyway, any last thoughts about the collection before we move on to Martine Rose's collection? Micah doesn't have any last thoughts. Dami, do you have any last thoughts?
I have a last thought.
Okay, Micah does have a last thought. Okay.
I was just gonna say, tying into that thing I was saying earlier about a lot of these collections, in my opinion, being structured around Pharrell's personal like style and like his history. When you look into some of the pieces and the accessories, lots of them are stuff that you have already seen as staples throughout his career and blah blah blah. So, for example, an obvious example is he's brought back the first Millionaires that he did with Niga under Marc Jacobs in 2007. Those are now back on the runway again. And there's just loads of little details like that. So just different things he's like worn or been involved in throughout his career I think we'll continue to see those seep into future and current LV collections.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So what I would say is, someone like Pharrell, I wouldn't personally listen to, right? And as in his interviews, I wouldn't read about him or do anything like that. I would 100% take his collections at face value and see them in terms of the context that these collections are in. And to understand the context of these collections, you get to understand the lifestyle of the uber wealthy. And this could be akin in terms of philosophy to, the Tom Ford Gucci era, right? As in to say, you are seeing what in turn is our window, our looking glass into what the upper echelon actually think about, actually look at, and actually care about. And then I would reintroduce into the frame what Pharrell says. And the wandering generalities in which he speaks is because, one, he's so media trained, but to open up the guys and create a very simple line of speech that is connected to people all over the world. And then when you're looking at this collection, you see the American culture, and not just, people wanting Black American culture, right, in and of itself, but then wanting a piece of Pharrell because they grew up and lived with him. So that all being said, the value and the quality going up is indicative of Pharrell in and of himself, but then also the allowance that we get to look at what they want, and then seeing that it's actually reflected in what people buy, as well as the activations on a retail and merchandise level, just shows that Pharrell knows exactly what he's doing, and he was the perfect person for this position.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because also too, do you think they would be able to have these crazy price increases and the collection would be perceived the same way if it was Martine, in this position, or if it was Grace Rose Botter, who a lot of people thought were going to be at the helm? I don't
That's
know.
such a great segue to Martine's collection.
I just also too, one thing I will say before I forget, just seeing this collection for the very first time, I was thinking a lot about the RAF debut at CK 205. Just his kind of his idea,
Western inspired,
Western. I thought about that first collection a lot, and there was a lot of unseen residue and similarities between the two.
Yeah, I think Khalif is making some good points about who are their customers. I already see it here in New York, Atlanta, and Chicago. Yeah, so in London, you see tons of Martine Rose. In London, you see Martine Rose everywhere. People wear the football jerseys, people wear the footwear, people wear the everywhere. But London is a tiny market, so once again, going back to, because a lot of people are like, oh, why wasn't Martine Rose hired as the creative director? I'm a Martine Rose fanboy. Everyone knows this. I own a lot of her pieces. That being said, she's not big enough or known enough to even do. How I even know this is when she was hired as a creative consultant by Demna at Balenciaga, most people didn't even know who she was. People were like, oh, who's that woman that was hired by that? People don't even know who she is. So that made me realize, oh, wow, I'm actually in a fashion bubble. Most people really don't know who Martine Rose is. She's quite relatively unknown to the greater general public outside of people that are really, really into fashion, and especially a London-centric audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I feel you kind of, just going off what you said, you kind of need that push to kind of even push your product, especially at LVMH. I was really rooting for Martine or Grace Rose Botter, but as far as the commercial aspect of the brand, I just don't know. I guess if it would have made the most sense international, I guess.
Right. Dammy, why are you smiling? I feel like you're about to say, I said
No,
that.
I love the conversation about who Martine Rose's customer is and who Grace Rose Bonner's customer is. So yeah, it's probably my favorite fashion. My favorite fashion conversation is trying to figure out whose customers who. What is the psychographic analysis of this particular customer?
Yeah.
Because I don't care about fashion.
Victor Blue,
people's,
to respond to this,
thoughts
like,
about it. Yes.
yeah, so someone said, I think a lot of fashion people did not like this collection. It felt like a grin, a who will be next director grin. Yeah, so for me, and like on my streams, on my channel, like how we review shows is it depends on the designer. It's all about context. So if you think of what are the goals of LV, what is Pharrell trying to say in the context of all those things, the customer market, that's why we tend to end up talking about business when we talk about LV, because Pharrell is not JW Anderson. There's not like loads of narrative informed by like loads of books that he's trying to uncover through clothes. So it really just depends on which designer you're actually reacting to. I think that the issue with a lot of fashion people is that they expect everyone to be JW Anderson. They expect everything to be in that lens. And if it isn't, you're a terrible designer, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think everyone has a different role. Everyone has a different job. And how I judge collections is within the role that I think the designer is doing and within like the role of what they're doing. But yeah, I think also in fashion, it is like a thing where people just like to hate, because I don't know if they make it, if they think that it makes them seem more knowledgeable about they're on some higher echelon because they're like, this is trash. But me personally, which is why I love these live streams where we can talk about fashion in depth, I don't get any insight from someone on Twitter saying, oh my God, that's terrible. The same way I don't get anything from people on Twitter saying, oh my God, it's giving. That also isn't very insightful. So, okay, what do you actually like about it other than it's giving? It's giving style. It's giving, it's like, it's not very insightful, is it?
And I just
so I think it just depends on what brand, what designer. But yeah, Dami, what are you going to say?
I just want to say that Louis Vuitton and Loewe is like almost 50% of the market share of what we're actually doing in fashion, right? There are in part, not just in the Vogue sentiments or like the advertising sentiment, but like in terms of LVMH in general, like they are what makes this thing move. Like, see someone do a video on Balenciaga, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and see the views goes up. But then also see the people buy these people, right? There's a reason why we can talk about them so much, because it's profitable to talk about them. That's the other thing, right? And so I don't care. And secondly, LVMH has JW Anderson and Pharrell. So when we get to the Loewe conversation, we can talk about art. When we get to the Martine Rose conversation, we can talk about politics, customer, how she protests, and all of these other things, which is quite nice that we've actually got the parity or even the parallel, right, in terms actually juxtaposition of talking about Louis Vuitton, the market holder and the market maker, and then we're talking about Martine Rose, who is like a pioneer in menswear for our generation. So yeah, it's like I don't like when fashion, like I was saying prior, I don't really care what fashion people have to say in particular because they aren't the market. Like,
and also, okay, let me not drag fashion people too much here, but one thing I'm just saying something. Look, we're gonna go to Martine Rose after, but the last thing I will say about fashion people is I don't like bringing this up because I know people get annoyed when I'm like, oh, I went to St. Martin's. But when I was at CSM, something that did stand out to me a lot is that the quintessential fashion person, their references in life are so limited. So they don't have a very good understanding of just what happens culturally generally. They only have, their references are very fashion centric. So they only watch movies that are like art history movies or related to art or, you know, something that has relation to queerness and all that stuff, which is important, but it's very narrow. So talk to those people about like, they couldn't understand why LVMH would, you know, sponsor the Olympics because they don't know about sports, or culturally they just don't have an understanding. Whereas, like, say someone like me, I'm into sports, but then I'm also into art, but then I'm also into. So there's a range that if you're just not coming from that ultimate fashion centric lens, that you can actually understand a few more things, which is where I think a lot of fashion people lose out because they just jump into things without understanding it fully, and then they're like, "Oh, that's
So
trash,"
what
and
you're
it's like, yeah, but your references in life are so narrow, though. Like,
so what you're saying is that you're more cultured than the fashion person.
I
That's what
don't
you're
want to.
saying.
I don't want to say. It sounds cocky, but I kind of.
So
It sounds cocky.
basically,
Do you know why though?
it's,
Do you
thanks
know
for saying
why?
the
Do you
nice
know
thing of what
why?
I said. Please go on.
It's true though, because like, okay, that's what you're afforded when I've lived in an African country, but then I've also lived in the UK. So I can understand so many different perspectives in a way that, like, if you're just coming from a very specific fashion-centric view, it's very hard for you to be able to see things from loads of different directions. Like, I was with the white kids, you know, listening to house and techno, but at the same time at home I listen to hip hop. So I know what hip hop culture is, I know what techno culture is, I know what house culture is. Most of the people I went to school with CSM, they don't know what hip hop culture is, but I can tell you about all the different directions. So that's what I mean. I think a lot of people in fashion, their range is really, really limited. And that's why Virgil Abloh does stuff and they don't get it at all. And they're just like, oh, it's trash. And it's like, no. If you actually look at the perspective that he's coming from and you actually understand what streetwear is, even this understanding of like, and we're going to go to Martine Rose, which is why it's very interesting to bring it up, but this understanding of like streetwear, for a long time, the way the word streetwear is used is just like, oh, it's a black person making clothes I don't understand. That's how I see a lot of critics when they say, oh, that's just streetwear. Because Martine Rose says this a lot, that streetwear shouldn't really be used as a derogatory term, because if anything, you want people to actually interact with your clothes. And at the crux of what streetwear is, it's just people wearing clothes, walking on the street. So it's actually clothes that your everyday person interacts with. And so, once again, I just feel like the quintessential fashion person, the range is very lacking.
So, like, okay, he called you guys myopic, which is fine, right? But what I would say is, I come from the art background, right? And in terms of having to understand references, like, and I come from the art creator background, which is I make things, right? Like, it's not like one of those other spaces, but like, in terms of that, it's like almost you have to understand business and understand the creative side and understand the references and where they come from. So it's like culture, business, and creativity or art sentiment all rolled into one, right? And that isn't to say that there are fashion designers without that. Like, J.W. Anderson is a perfect example of someone that has all three, right? Like, Daniel Roseberry is also an example of someone who has all three. Demna is quite someone that has all three in terms of having that delta of understanding those assets, right? As someone who is creating on the highest level possible. So I value the creators like that are the market share of or to have the majority of market share of what we do in this game, because without being able to talk about them, it wouldn't be as fun because they're the greatest. We're talking about the greatest people to do it as we exist right now. So it's not to say any of these people are trash. However, when I do hear a fashion person say it's trash sometimes, I'm like, what is your consideration? And that's where we get to the conversation of what Martine Rose is and what streetwear is. And, then we have to get into culture. And then this is where, a lot of people miss out, which is you're just looking at one side of it. And like, there's people that are on the culture side that don't look at the art side and they miss out also. And there's people on the business side that don't see the culture or art side and like they miss out on their own part as well.
Yeah.
But being able to
Victor
have all
Blue,
three allows you
this
to
is
be
a strong point. So I made a video on like fashion critics that people should follow, and I think I mentioned Vanessa Friedman. I think so. And I mentioned that there's things that she says that I don't agree with. This is exactly what I was talking about. When Vanessa Friedman writes about streetwear, it almost sounds like this is not what she's saying, but it almost comes across like these N words are making clothes that I don't get. So let me just bash it. Like, that's genuine. Every time she writes about streetwear, it's just like some blind hate piece. And I'm just like, what? Like, what is she talking about? And that's the issue with because even a lot of the writers I respect, Like, I'm talking about the Tim Blanks, the Vanessa Friedmans. Anytime it comes to, and that's why I say their range is lacking, because anytime it comes to reviewing anything along the lines of the inspiration points come from Black culture or it comes from hip hop or anything, that's where you start to see low-key racism, whether they mean it or not, or like a lack of real understanding of what's going on or the community or why people actually care about these clothes. And that's where you start to be like, what are they actually talking about? And that's why I always feel like when it comes to, you know, people that talk about fashion or people that write about fashion, it's always great when you see like a better variety, because otherwise you get the Vanessa Friedmans, who kind of what this person is saying, it's seen as lowbrow culture. Yeah, exactly. And that's how they view it. That's their perspective on it. So yeah, but anyway, to move on to Martine Rose, let's talk about Martine Rose Fall Winter 24. As you guys know, Martine Rose is certainly one of my favorite fashion designers in fashion. If you want to know more about her background, I've made many videos on her work, and Understitch also has a really amazing video on kind of like the background of Martine Rose. So definitely check that out. But to talk about kind of where her inspiration points come from, she's very inspired by British culture in all its forms, I can put it that way, because she looks at themes of things like rave culture, which is inspired by her love of raving from when she was a kid. She's always talking about like her sister and her cousin and how they got her into raving and stuff like that. She's also talking about, you know, politics and activism in the UK. I reviewed her Spring Summer 20 show many years ago, where she was talking about the UK leaving the EU, and she had a commentary on that through clothes. She's also inspired by the uniforms of everyday people in London. So sometimes she creates characters of people that she sees in London on the runway. So you see the guy, the business guy that works in the city wearing his suit with his briefcase. You also see, you know, the guy that's like just come from a rave and is heading back home after a crazy sesh. So she has all these different characters, and there's that British humor, even in her ad campaigns. You'll see people just posing in some fish and chip shop, run in some random place, or standing beside like a pie and mash stand. And there is this like almost like very authentic Britishness to everything she does. The fact that she'll have runway shows in some random market that she used to buy, you know, Jamaican patties from. Like that is the Martine Rose aesthetic and idea. And a lot of even the silhouettes are inspired by her Jamaican heritage to a point, but also British history and how that merges together. So, for example, you see from Martine Rose's tailoring, it's very boxy. The lapels are massive. If you look at the Windrush generation and what they were wearing back then, it was a lot of these boxy suits with big lapels. That is also like a very traditional British way of doing tailoring. So, yeah, that's kind of like a rundown on what Martine Rose does and her aesthetic. But anyway, Dami, did you see her latest show, and what did you think if you saw it?
You know I did. I enjoyed it. It's a good show. It's a really good show. Do you want to get the show up quickly?
Yeah, I'm going to put it on the screen now.
It's very, very 80s inspired. Let me look at my notes. So I think Martine Rose is one of those people that pushes menswear forward. She's very culture and art centric, not so much on the business front. As her saying that she said several things about not doing shows, right? And she has protested against doing shows.
Part of it is to do with money, though. Part of it is to do with like funds.
So as I was talking about that intersection, that delta of fashion, business, fashion, which is business, culture, and art. She has the culture and art side down, but then when it comes to the business, even though she is one of the more profitable people as part of the group that she's part of now, that notwithstanding, she has afforded herself a lifestyle of being able to not do shows, which is very valuable, right, to her in particular. However, when she does do shows, like it's valuable now, it wasn't valuable in the beginning, but when she does do shows, they end up like this, like, and they have weight and they have value and they extend culture and give you a level of authenticity that you don't otherwise see in fashion, in terms of when you want to see the full brunt of someone's.
Oh, it just disappeared. mid speech.
Oh man.
That's crazy. Anyway, Caleb, did you see the show? And if you did, what are your thoughts?
Actually, I haven't seen it yet. It's my first time watching it. But I mean, Martine is personally my goat. Yeah, very cultured, and also I love how like actually wearable her collections are as well.
Yeah.
And just like how vast, kind of like what you guys were saying, just like her reference like scope is just like so vast, and that is because she has like that, life experience, I like to call it. Yeah, the looks to me so far are super wearable, and yeah, I love anything that Martine does. Anything that she does, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dammy, what are you saying before you disappeared?
It booted me out the chat. I'll be so honest.
That's so weird.
So yeah, she has a richness to her referencing, right? And she's referencing the 80s. And there are two looks that remind me or are fully reminiscent of Bobby and Whitney, right? And I enjoyed them so much. And it's so cool. And she loves that style of music. She loves Prince. Like I was just watching her I believe it was Fashion Radio by Show Studio. And they were talking about music, and so it was just one of those things where her rave culture and just the essence, like it's the essence. It's British, you get me? It's like
British, mate.
British, without the T. The T's only for crumpets, for crumpets, bro. That's why.
Yeah, I think backstory to this runway show for people that don't know. So the original show was held in London, and it was just like a very intimate group of like Martine Rose's friends, family, critics, journalists, just like a very intimate space. And kind of Martine Rose wanted it to kind of be like the models to be comfortable and for it to be kind of like a show, and people are like, having character on the runway and those sort of things. And she also told people that they're not allowed to bring their phones, or they're not allowed to bring out their phones. So that way people actually focus on the clothes, which is a very Martine Rose thing to do, because Martine Rose is more about real life, about everyday people every day. And so I love that, because sometimes you look at runway shows and it's like, are people actually looking at the show? Like everyone's just like getting their content for TikTok and Instagram stories and reels and stuff, and I'm definitely complicit in this, by the way. So it's always refreshing to see people actually taking in the clothes. Like obviously the audio is muted, but people are actually cheering and like laughing and like having really fun. It was like really, really fun. Way more fun than your normal runway show where everyone's just so serious. Everyone's trying to look so chic. There's no noise, pin drop silence, all that sort of stuff. So that was really nice. And then for Paris, so this happened on the 6th of January in London. Then for Paris Fashion Week, she had kind of like a video of the show as a presentation. And then she also had a private kind of re-showing of the collection too. So that's kind of like the story, the backstory going on with the clothes. And in terms of like the inspiration point of this collection, it's actually just the study of individual ways of wearing clothes. So from the gestures that people have to the movements to their mannerisms. So you see so many of those different mannerisms in this collection. You see blankets that have been sewn into kind of like a half jacket and dress. It kind of looks like, when you wear half of your jacket on and you're walking. Or there's even a piece, I think you'll see it later, that's a reference to when you're hot in a club, or when you're just too hot or uncomfortable and you take your shirt off and you tie it around your waist, or you tie a jacket around your waist. Those kind of ideas, which goes back to the mannerisms and kind of what people do with their everyday clothing. So that's really what this collection is. And you see all those different references, even down to, there's actually a blazer, which you also see, where the lining is extended out of the jacket. So it looks like a cuff, but it's actually just the inner lining of the jacket that's been extended further to mimic like a shirt cuff that's supposed to go past the blazer. That was really interesting. So she has these really intelligent ways of playing with everyday clothing and just menswear in general that makes everything just so exciting and so fun in a way. Like even look at the way the models just like spin, like it's fun.
You see this guy, I follow him on Instagram. He's sartorially excellent. I believe he's from South Africa. I hope I'm not getting the place wrong. But he has a podcast also, and he is him. He's him for real. Like everything he's doing, he does that on Instagram. Let me get his Instagram up, but he's him. But no, man. That's amazing. Like I saw him and I was like, bro, I follow him. But yeah, that's what I have to say.
I love the blazers. I love that the shoulder pads are like back in too.
Yeah.
I see that from her a lot. It gives like a certain like, I don't know, like attitude and playfulness that like, I don't know, I haven't seen in a few years. I feel like the only one who like really shows like the super serious shoulder is like Rick, but it's nice to see like Martine do like her own.
Yeah, this is the piece that's inspired by like things that you tie around your body, like a jacket you take off and tie around.
Yeah.
So she has these like stationary knots at different parts of the coat. Very, very interesting. And even I think in the show notes, she said that the color palette is inspired by like the 90s garage scene and what people are wearing in Camden. Now, for my non-UK people, Camden is like, Dami, how do you describe Camden is like a very hippie area of London. It's kind of where people have dressed in a very hippie way, but it's kind of changing now. It's becoming really gentrified. So a lot of designers are re-referencing how Camden used to be in like back in the 90s, the early 2000s, what people used to wear. People's clothes used to be really interesting. There used to be like these like market stalls where people just used to sell clothes on the street in Camden. It still is like that. Parts of it are still like that, but it's slowly becoming gentrified, and very soon we won't even recognize it anymore. So kind of just to explain kind of where that reference comes from. No, not Camden, New Jersey. No. Camden in London. Someone said they're thinking of black aunties in the 90s. Yeah, that's kind of what Martine is going for anyway. That's like, she references that time period a lot, the 80s and the 90s in Britain, because that's when she was growing up. She references that all the time. Yeah, a lot of bootleg stuff is in Camden as well, like the market stores. But yeah, Dami, how would you describe like Camden to our majority American audience? Camden, London, not New Jersey.
It's like there is it's like Soho in America. Like Soho. Or like actually it might even,
I feel like Soho in New York is, yeah, because Soho in New York is a bit more corporate than
what's it
Camden.
Called again? Where's the wharf? Like America has a wharf. I forgot what it's called, but it's like it begins with a C. Like, or New York has a wharf. It begins with a C. It's like that's actually Staten Island, like a bit of that. So it's like the people that use drugs. That is like Soho-ish. Like what our Soho as well. To be fair, our Soho. But well, the Camden that she's referencing is that, right? So there will be market stalls, people that like sell rings and sell, and you know, there's thrift shops over there. It's like, and plus it's like this big road. Like what people think of Camden is this big road, right? And then there's places off there, so that there's a ferry that goes through Camden, and you know, all of these other things. But like, because there's the hood part of Camden, and then there is like what people
the more gentrified,
yeah. So that's what they're referencing. They're referencing the Camden market. So it's like you know, a very stylish marketplace. I would say that's what people are referencing. But like, if like people don't care who you are, how you identify.
Khalif, where he said Fashion Road Man is wearing this, black and brown people are not wearing this thrift shop. So I don't know where. I think you're American, and I think, like I said earlier, like I don't think our market has properly extended to America yet. But in the UK, I can assure you that there's many black and brown people wearing Martine Rose, like a lot of people. In London, there's people that wear it all the time, literally everywhere you go. Every time I leave my house, I see someone wearing Martine Rose in London, especially if you're in like a more trendy area like Soho, Camden, those kind of, somewhere in Central.
Though. Like literally, Kendrick said, "Martine, when I bought jets." Which Martine did you think he was talking about?
Yeah, Kendrick does actually wear a lot of Martine. I just remembered.
Literally,
Yeah, he
no,
does.
like his Big Steppers
You
tour.
should do
He wore
merch.
Martine. That was Martine. Like the Big
Drake
Steppers tour,
wears
he dressed it.
Martine as well.
Drake, West Side Gun. Like you don't need to go far, like at all. But yeah, that's a bit. See what I mean about. Never mind. Because if I start actually going in on fashion people, because what I did earlier was not going in on fashion people. But yeah, that was wild. Europeans was different.
But yeah, it is still very London centric, but there are people, black and white people
Martine
across the world that wear it.
I protect Martine at all costs. I can't lie to you, man.
Yeah.
You can't really say anything.
It might look like, to be honest, the thrift and fine wear is not far-fetched. It might look like thrift and fine wear because she's referencing the 80s and the 90s. And when you go to a thrift store, the jackets that you're seeing are from that time period. So it makes sense. It's not like what he's saying is wrong. But the black and brown people, I beg to differ on that one.
I just think in the US, like her clothes like aren't as like distinguishable and like recognizable like for the average person here in the US. Like I feel like only like New York, maybe LA, like will you actually see somebody like wearing it.
I've seen people wear it in New York, but the thing is I haven't been in New York long enough to just say that, oh yeah, people in New York wear it too. But I have seen people wear it. Do I know how like often they wear it or if it's a regular thing? I don't know. The New Yorkers will have to tell me about that.
Yeah, it's definitely there. I mean, I just think it's like a taste thing. You know, like some people are just like behind on things. And Martine, I don't know. I don't want to say she's like people know who she is, but she kind of is like a hidden gem like here in the US. It's just not, you don't really see a lot of people wearing her stuff. So I think it just will take a little more time for her like design language to like actually trickle into the like what people are wearing.
Yeah, I think it's just her No, you're right. Like her reference points are just really like, okay, I'll give you an example. So in this season, she had a second collaboration with Clarks, which most people know, but if you don't know, it's like a very, very old British footwear brand. So she made like a slingback heel, a padded mule, and I think a padded Oxford shoe. And when you think of why it makes so much sense for Martine Rose to do a collaboration with Clarks, she has Jamaican heritage. Clarks are a shoe that are huge in Jamaica. And over the years, like there have been so many pop cultural references to Clarks. I mean, Vibes Cartel, Popcorn, they have songs dedicated to Clarks. Like in the UK, if you leave your house a few times a year, or you've gone out at least once in your life, you would have heard that, like, everybody have to ask me, when you get me Clarks? Everyone knows that song. Everyone in the UK knows, like, that you can't be from the UK and not know what that song is. So Clarks and Jamaican culture go hand in hand. And because there's such a Jamaican, massive Jamaican community in the UK, because like Windrush and stuff, so that's why, like in the UK, we would get that reference, and maybe in the US, maybe places like New York, where they're like big Jamaican communities, they'll also understand that reference. Whereas maybe outside of like New York, it won't be something that is so obvious to people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just to tee that up, I just hop back into tee up what you're saying. That like I think because we're British, it's easy for us to forget to articulate that like there's so many varying degrees of Britishness to people who are obviously like from the US, because obviously when we are talking about like Jonathan Anderson, we'll be like, oh, his clothes are so British and his collections are like rooted in teapots and blah 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 blah. But then Martine Rose is kind of like that other aspect of Britishness, which is like, you know, being from the Caribbean and Africa in diaspora in Britain and like growing up in the 80s and 90s. And like when you live here and you know those people, you see it in her clothes like immediately. Like I can't not see it in her clothing. But I think when you haven't been completely like surrounded in that environment, I understand why it's like harder to see. But funnily enough, I'd argue that J.W. Anderson and Martine Rose are equal levels of Britishness. They just tackle like different pockets of Britain.
Aspects of Britain, yeah. Because Martine Rose is more like the
You know,
more like the diaspora, like yeah, we can hear you. Martine Rose is more of like the diaspora, like black culture. Also,
Exactly. Like,
outside of like black culture, like just rave culture, which is like majority white, to be fair. But it's very London. So, like the lens is very, very London. Whereas JW Anderson will look at like some company in Cornwall and like the pots and pans and pottery that they're making. So it's very, very British, but from two
like
different
Martine Rose
lenses.
is very black people in diaspora. This is the kind of collection that my mum would look at and be like, "Oh yeah, this is swag." Whereas like if my mom's looking at like that LV collection, my mom would be like, "Oh, what's going on?" But my mom would look at this and be like, "Oh yeah, like I get it, like I understand."
She'll probably say, "This is what we were wearing."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in terms of like Martine Rose actually growing, there are a lot of British not centered, but people that start in Britain that can't grow past that $4 million cap, right? And that's in part of her business strategy, which is not necessarily her business strategy, but it's her group's like business strategy. And there is a way to grow Martine Rose's brand just the same way that JW Anderson's brand is grown, right? And partly that's through collaborations, but also it's through signifiers and just being consistent within Fashion Week. So there's a way that you can spend money to continually make shows so that your brand can actually grow, so that you're stocked in enough places that enough eyes are on your clothes. But it depends on what Martine Rose's personal strategy is. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean financially, because I know people are saying like, "What's her customer?" I mean, Martine Rose, for example, she dressed like Team USA women's team. Like her Nike collabs are huge. Even people that don't really care for her clothes or wear her clothes or even really know who she is are still wearing her Nike collabs. Like the girlies be wearing the Nike Shock Mules like there's no tomorrow. Literally, like yeah. I've seen those in LA and all over the world. Like the girlies be wearing that like there's no tomorrow. So it also depends what aspect of the brand. Are we seeing the girls in New York wearing the really boxy blazers in mass? Probably not. Are we seeing them wearing the Nike Shox Mules? Yes. Are we seeing them wearing the football jerseys? Yes. So I think it just depends of like what aspect of Martine Rose's work. Like Martine Rose is like known for mules, for example, and loads of people wear her mules, like loads. So I think it just depends what aspect of Martine Rose we're talking about. Gossiping in the salon aesthetic. That's hilarious. Khalif is on Martine's neck.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I do. Some of his points though are super valid.
They are valid.
I just keep looking at what he's saying, and yeah. You just don't get it. It's cool. I'm dead.
No, but like I was saying, I think I definitely understand why if someone who's not from London or from the UK told me, oh, they didn't really get it and they didn't understand the appeal, I'd understand that because it is like, to an extent, it's niche, I guess, in that sense of like, at the end of the day, the UK is tiny compared to the US or like Asia and different regions there.
Yeah, even down to like, because Khalif said obviously as a West Indian, it's just like old clothes and back home retwisted. Her collabs do better. The thing about, let's say, Jamaican culture in the UK, it's very UK Jamaican specific in terms of Jamaican culture in New York is actually very different to Jamaican culture in the UK because of how like Jamaican culture is still through the lens of Britishness. And if you think of like historically when Windrush happened, a lot of Jamaicans felt like they had to sort of assimilate, for lack of a better term, to be accepted in British culture. So what Jamaican culture is like very unique and a fusion of Britishness in the Jamaican culture. So it's very different to like anywhere else. And that's what we're saying. Like, this is what Martine Rose references is quite unique to like from a British lens.
I will say though, there is a way to communicate what Martine creates to a wider demographic. It's just that that strategy hasn't been executed amongst her group, and just the growth strategy that the
Who
Martine
owns
Rose is
Martine Rose? It's
implementing.
Tomorrow Group, right? I think it's
They're the
Tomorrow
ones
Group.
that own a Cold War. Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow Group. Let me just check. Tomorrow Group, Martine Rose. Yeah. So it is owned by
Yeah.
Tomorrow Group still.
So my notes. But yeah.
They
and
own like Charles Jeffrey Loverboy too, right?
Yep. A Cold War.
Yeah.
I believe they've
Let me
got
go on.
like
I'm going on their website. I'll have it up now. So a
And
Cold
then
War, Charles Jeffrey, Loverboy, Martine Rose. Those are like their main. Copani as well. Those are like their main brands.
Coperni does super well with them.
Okay, GmbH, Head Miner, Otterlinger, Post Archive Faction, Rojas. Whoa, they've got White Mountain. Whoa. They're a bigger group than I thought. I didn't even know they own that many brands.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, like the growth strategy for Martine Rose the brand hasn't necessarily been implemented, so that's my problem
Yeah.
with it, really.
Yeah, I've never been to Carney in New York, so I don't know what Carney in New York is like. Although it must be mentioned that Carney is actually Trini, not Jamaican. Obviously, like we've adopted it as like a Caribbean thing, but it's like Trini, not Jamaican. I don't want the people from Trinidad and Tobago to be on my neck. Someone said, to give your credit, I'm from California and I don't get her niche. Yeah, which is fair enough. I think that's up to Tomorrow Group and the people that work there to really, explain that to a global audience. And how successfully they do that will obviously determine how big the brand gets and if it really does have the serious crossover appeal. Because as a brand, the two places you really want to cross over to are America and Asia. Those are the two places you want to cross over to. If you want to make loads of money, that is. Being a brand that's like cool and big in Europe is not going to make you much money.
Mm-hmm.
This
I feel like she also
particular-
just hasn't really like tackled that like the things that really like make you money, like the accessories, and like she hasn't had like a hit like bag or like a hit like accessory that really, I feel like that's what takes kind of like the smaller like niche-er designers like Matthew Williams when he was doing like Aleeks, like the belt buckle, like he had so many like key signatures that kind of like allowed him to go from like A to XYZ a little bit faster because he had so many like well selling. I feel like most people know Martine for the ready to wear. She doesn't
Yeah,
really have any like
but
staple accessories or bags, and I feel like that would like really like help
this is the
broaden
thing,
her range.
as soon as football jerseys came in, I said this on Twitter as well. As soon as football jerseys came in, they should have pushed Martine Rose's football jerseys
Yeah.
and the striped shirts as well, but they didn't. And I don't know what happened. And I think that was a missed opportunity on their part because literally football jerseys have now been popping for a solid 2.5 years, 3 years, if you've really
Yeah.
been in. And people are buying vintage football jerseys also. The shirts also work really well, the striped shirts that Martine Rose makes. So these are fundamental to menswear, and yet there hasn't been a major push, even though her merchandise is literally in line with the way that people dress today. And then she has jackets that have a twist on what people like the leather jackets and the double-breasted jackets that are out there. That's literally how the girls dress today. Like that double-breasted, like as I've seen one too many girls wearing like either a shawl lapel or double-breasted peak lapel, but they're not pushing it. And that's the thing. This is like, I don't know whose fault is. I'm not really here to place blame. However, there is a strategy that can be implemented to grow Martine Rose as a brand. I'm not just saying her as Britishness because that, to be honest, yeah, that's her fundamentals. But the only reason why we're saying it like that is because she's culture and art, and there hasn't really been a real business strategy. And once there's a real business strategy, we'll just be saying Martine Rose is like the quintessential menswear designer and pushes the culture forward. But really, as she exists today, she pushes it from the behind, like she pushes it from the back. and is a confidant to the greatest menswear designers. So that's it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let me see if I can pull up the Clarks collaboration, because I think it was on their Instagram page. But yeah, it's also, even in the context of Martine Rose using football jerseys, once again, it makes sense and she's been doing it before as a trend, because in the UK, people just wear football jerseys casually because it's the biggest sport. Like, people used to wear AstroTurfs with jeans. And that's obviously something that people are like bringing back and stuff.
I miss that when the boys would put up with the Astros on casually.
It was a bit crazy to wear the Astros with the jeans, but people did it. People did it. Football, they're both the same. If you're not American, football means football. It doesn't mean soccer. But yeah, these are the clogs, and then the did someone say Astros while controlling a wine was wild times?
Bro, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Can you imagine wearing Astros while
That's crazy.
That's a wild picture to paint. That's a wild picture to paint, bro.
While holding a wine? That's crazy.
Yo. And then you've got the 60-degree lean onto your ankles, man. And you're leaning back like that. you're giving it a cute angle, bro.
Whoa, Astros controlling a wine is mad. At least you've got ultimate traction. You've got perfect grip, so you can do some mad wine positions, because the grip from the Astros is all the different angles. These high-waisted, oversized fitted silhouettes remind me of zoot suit culture in the early mid-1900s California. Interesting. I don't think it's like
lying if I said I knew anything about that.
But zoot suits, like from jazz.
Wait.
Jazz.
Oh my gosh. Wait, what did they just say?
When people are wearing suits that look like zoot suits. But Mikey, like zoot suits, like in jazz, when people used to wear suits that looked like they're wearing their dad's clothes.
Yeah, but I don't.
You mean you're talking about Prohibition era America, and this is my thing, right? This is my thing. People have reference points that aren't necessarily like robust enough. And this isn't, I'm not even trying to defend Martine Rose. This is not even a defense of Martine Rose. We had a small conversation earlier, low-key kicking the fashion people's back in. But I want to illustrate just something right here. So
also, talking about zoot suits, sorry, just before you continue, one thing that did point out to me is, to be fair, I didn't even know there was zoot suit culture in California, so I need to look into that. Because when I think of zoot suits, I think of like
that's what I was
New
saying.
York. I think of like Harlem and stuff. Like
it's like this the like so so this is like mid-century not post-prohibition, but during prohibition America, when Hollywood was first coming in, and also what's it called, Vegas was getting built also. So the people on the East Coast, the people from Philly, Chicago, and New York migrated to the West Coast. And that's how the style kind of also moved and shifted, right? But zoot suit culture was in part majorly pushed by Black Americans, but also there was also the Haitians, and there was also the Caribbean people, right? So there was a mix and mingle of people in New York, because New York, if you remember correctly, like, you know, like Jamaica, Queens, like all of these places, like what's it called? I forgot where that place in lower Manhattan.
Well, I mean,
But
Harlem people were wearing it and stuff.
let me not give too much of a history lesson, but
I think that's
that was
where
a
it was
melting
started.
pot for black
Harlem.
people, and it was a jazz aesthetic also.
Yeah.
That being said,
Everything got
double-breasted,
hijacked.
wait, double-breasted, like whatever that is, like not the high-waisted part, double-breasted jackets were just in, peak lapels were in, so they're not necessarily zoot suit. And then there's a secondary layer of that, which is the boxy fit that Martine Rose has as hers, right? So now you have double-breasted jackets that are low-key oversized, but they're Martine Rose oversized, right? And then you have peak lapels, boxy shoulders. All of these are part of the DNA, and also understanding how these people dressed back then also. So it's like the way that black Caribbeans migrated to London was based on the idea that they were British, right? And they were meant to be given the opportunity to work, and they came in their best dress, and then found out that not everybody in England was related to the king and queen. They were people that couldn't dress as well as them. And well, let's not get into like the birth of cool and all of these other things, but the main thing is, it's nice that it reminds Grant of zoot suit culture in America. However, people in other places also wore double-breasted peak lapels. But yeah.
Yeah, and obviously her inspiration points always come from Britain anyway, if you know Martine Rose, but it is interesting to draw those parallels. But yeah, by the way, people in the chat, I'm not saying that zoot suits were only happened in Harlem. I'm just saying when I think of zoot suits, that's just the picture that's in my head, like Memphis, Chicago, those kind of places. I don't actually know when. You guys can tell me when it was adopted, in a wider sense in the US. But yeah, that's just what comes to, like, if I paint a picture in my head, that's the picture I paint. It speaks well to diaspora and marginalized groups' cultures. I totally agree with that. What zoot suits came from Black Americans. Yeah, it did. Same way jazz came from Black Americans. I feel Martine's point of reference to grow is club culture. Do you mean like club culture in terms of like club kids, or do you mean club culture in terms of like just clubbing culture in general?
She tends to tackle more rave culture.
Yeah.
Because here, I mean, I don't know about in the US, but here, like club culture and rave culture, like there are some overlaps, but they're quite different. In the sense of like what people actually wear to them and the way people behave.
Okay, club culture from history. Okay, interesting. Across diaspora. The thing though is that, should Martine Rose be tackling culture from diasporas that she's not too privy to? Because what she tackles now is stuff that she understands, she lived through it, she grew up around it, she really, really understands what she's referencing to its core. How good would that look if she starts trying to reference, like, let's say, historical things that happened in like Black American history without having any ties to it or any like real deep understanding or connection of it? I think it'll take away the authenticity of her brand. Like, because America, like the landscape of the diaspora in America is so different. Like in America, there's people from like Haiti, there's like a lot of Haitians, there's a lot of Jamaicans. It's like a completely different landscape to the diaspora in the UK. Like two completely different things. Just like Khalif said, rave culture is not connected to a large amount of Black and brown people in the USA.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But any Michael, what do you think about Martine Rose generally?
I mean, I feel like we have this conversation. Oh, outside of the internet, we have this conversation a lot. But like, she's one of those designers, isn't it? That like, I just feel like she's incredibly consistent. She's probably one of my favorite British designers for sure. And I understand, especially now that we've done this live stream, I definitely understand a lot of the like questions and points that people in the comments are making, because I've always felt like she's a designer where like her name is so much bigger than her brand. The weight her name holds is so vast. I feel like every serious designer in fashion has the utmost respect for her, I imagine.
Yeah.
But her brand isn't moving to the levels that her respect is, if that so makes sense. And I've always thought that. But yeah, it's rare I see a Martine Rose collection where it doesn't hit a certain part of my brain, because obviously I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh, I saw this outside yesterday. Oh, I saw this like last week. Oh, my mom wears that. Oh, and like she manages to kind of, I mean, I was saying it in the comments too, but like to me, Martine Rose is very streetwear in the sense of like a purist version of the term, not like, oh, this is what urban people wear or this is what black people wear, but streetwear in the sense of like she makes clothes that people wear on the street. Like this is street fashion, this is street culture, and she always manages to embody that on the runway so effectively, in my opinion. Yeah, but I think I'd like to see her be bigger in the US, honestly.
Just to buttress your point, people buy her ready to wear. That can't be said for many designers.
Oh, yeah. No, I wasn't. I mean, even in the comments, I've been saying, oh, because I think someone asked, like, do people even buy Martine Rose? And I was like, yes, people.
They 100%.
Yeah, because there's another level of streetwear, right? Which is people can style your clothes.
Yeah.
And that is what, like, that's what I was only saying it to add to your point, because, like,
not
many people can. Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. As in, like, because I mean, I didn't bother saying it earlier, but since we're on the topic, I might as well say it now. She's one of those designers that, like, her brand can't die per se. It might not perform at like the height the Tomorrow Group want it to perform or whatever. But like, it's not like there's never gonna come a day where she puts out a runway that is at the same level she has been, and people are gonna say these clothes are bad and not buy it. That's never going to happen. So it's just a weird one where, like, you know, you have these groups of people who are super enthusiastic and interested in fashion, like some of the people who are in the comments today or watching the live or blah, blah, blah. But she's a designer that's just not popping in their area the same way she is over here. But they have that thing of like, well, everyone's speaking about her with reverence. So they're like, wow, all these people love Martine Rose, and I've never seen Martine Rose on the street. None of my friends knowing about Martine Rose, blah, blah, blah. It's a weird pocket to be in that me personally, I can't relate to, because obviously I see Martine Rose all the time here.
Dammy, you're muted.
Yeah, my finger's been glitching. Anyways, I just want to say I came here with the frame of like speaking to people that probably are encountering or have encountered your page for the first time, and I kind of left that frame when we were talking about the business, culture, and art perspective of, or should I say, the framework that I've created in terms of understanding fashion. And you know, there may be people that are new to fashion from last year, saw your channel from the Fashion Week film that dropped last year, and like are just experiencing one of these lives right now. So I want to apologize if I offended anybody's fashion knowledge. I don't usually like to do that, but that being said, like, there are people that are important to us in terms of fashion and the law of like what people actually had to fight for in streetwear. Like Martine Rose has almost had her company like kind of just like not make any money several times within her career, as well as
since 2007. She's been around forever.
She's been around forever. and it's not just like, oh, she's like a journeyed like legend or whatever it is. It's like, no, she is great. She sells really well, and she's very valuable to not just fashion but to the menswear community, because you see her DNA spotted all around, like in terms of what people wear, not just today, but like what people also put on the runway. So that's just my thing on Martine. But yeah, like, like I said, that there's some people that probably are just encountering like one of these lives for the first time, so let me tune in. So in reality, that's really the position that I want to take in this, instead of like, being this all-knowing whatever fashion, because I already know I speak sharp anyways. So it's like, I don't want to like be like one of those elitist people, because we're here to share information.
Of course, of course, of course. Kelly said, if she goes away, she won't be missed. Just because something is not for you doesn't mean that she won't be missed. Like, Khalif, I think you've definitely made valid points. Like, some of the points you brought up are valid, but just because a brand isn't, let's say, popular somewhere, it doesn't mean it's irrelevant or no one's going to miss it. Not every brand is Louis Vuitton and is like a brand that everyone across the world knows and is making like tens of billions. Like, there will be small brands, medium-sized brands, and then massive brands. That's just how it goes. So yeah, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to cater to everyone for it to be good. The people that it caters to are still majority of a UK audience, and I think her next step for, let's say, Tomorrow Group to think about is how can they market her ideas into a more global market, especially in the US and Asia. That's if they want to make loads of money, if that's their goal, which it probably is. So yeah, those are like valid questions, and I think the questions brought up around that are definitely very valid.
Yeah, and if you want to hire me to consult on that tomorrow, anyone else, hit me up on my Instagram.
No, I think she's like just like right there too. I think she's so close to like the cusp of like something very special. I mean, her brand is special, but I think as far as appealing to like more people, I think she's just right there. Like a bag, sunglasses, like just something simple, like I think will really like help propel her, in the right direction. Because ready to wear, I mean, I feel like that is what sells for her, but you have to have like an it bag, you have to have like some sort of accessory, if that's her goal,
Micah. Micah, you're gonna kill me. You're actually gonna kill me. Oh my god, Micah, do not finish me, man.
I just saw the chat. Yo, so
we must be white.
She's very valuable. She's not underrated at all. She's highly rated within fashion. She's one of the premier menswear designers, as I keep reiterating. And she also sells really well overseas. She just needs a wider audience, or should I say a strategy to hit a wider demographic. And probably, maybe she doesn't even want that. Who knows?
That's what I was about to say. I was like, I can't speak to what the group want, but she doesn't really strike me as the type of designer that cares. Maybe she does. I don't know her personally, but like based on how her collections look and the way she operates and carries herself within fashion, I feel like she doesn't care. As long as she can always afford to continue to run her brand the way she wants to, I think she's more concerned about that. That's how it comes across to me, anyway.
I feel like that's a really cool idea too, because as a consumer, that just makes me like her and her product even more. The fact that she's not like doing too much or not caving into like the peer pressures that sometimes these like big conglomerates can push on you. And I feel like she's not like caving in, and she's really like sticking to her like ethos and her design language, and she's still doing it her way, which is important.
Yeah. What did Leo say? Her Nike collaborations are being sold here in South Africa. maybe not everything, but some pieces, and I can see it slowly penetrating the market. Interesting.
And even to speak on the Nike collabs, that's not cap. Every single time she's collabed with Nike, it's banged and done well. At least round here, I remember. I don't know if were her Air Monarchs the first collab she did with Nike.
I think so.
The
Yeah,
other
it was
one,
Air Monarchs and like it's Air Monarchs, and then there's like Nike jerseys, the
It's
blue
the
ones.
Monarchs. It's the Monarchs.
Yeah, and then you
And
have
then-
the
yeah,
shots.
yeah, yeah.
And like every time she collabs
yeah.
with Nike, it does well. Like it really does well.
Can
Yeah.
I just say that let's just treat these people like trolls and move on, because I know, like, it's 10:15. These men don't know what they're talking about, or they do and just want to keep us going on. And yeah, what do you say, Ayo? For real.
Yeah, I think anyway, we've discussed everything that needs to be discussed with the collection.
Botter,
So
hello, hello,
we'll
Botter.
say
that
hello
being
to Botter.
Why is this guy creasing? Why is this guy creasing? Oh,
He's he just started. He laughed himself into muting himself.
creasing, man.
Oh god. Anyway, moving on to moving on to Botter. Did you guys see the Botter collection? And if you have any general thoughts on Botter, what are your general thoughts on Botter?
I missed them at, is it Nina Ricci?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I missed them there. I miss it because they're political activists now for marine life, and
Yeah.
which is cool. It's cool, but here's my general thing about this collection. They have their collaboration with Reebok. And this also speaks to my Delta, right? I love how every single one of these has been a case study of my Delta, of business creativity, or should I say business culture and art, right? Which is like, they have this understanding of like being artistic and artistic sentiment and being able to transform something, upcycle several things. But then what I'm seeing is that they have this collaboration with Reebok, and I was asking myself, is Reebok the best collaborator when Adidas has a sustainability line? And I do believe some of it speaks to the amount of pieces that they're able to sell and the value that they have in the marketplace. So to say that the quality that they're bringing to the table in terms of amount of units they move isn't enough to get a collaboration with Adidas. I may be wrong. They can prove me wrong by doing a collaboration with Adidas, right? But same way, I saw this with PMOS also, where it's like he had the collaboration with Reebok, I believe it was, and that was what was keeping his company afloat up until it couldn't.
And he was creative director at a point too, no?
Yeah. So
yeah,
these are the things that make me wonder about certain people in CEO positions, because they do design so well. They design so well. Lisi and Rushemy. I know, like, I think both of us have Rushemy on LinkedIn, but but yeah, like shout out to Rushemy. Like, he's actually a really good guy, really really good guy. But I like what I see is what I see in it. So I do see the value that he brings in terms of like not just activism but creativity in general, especially British design. But then I also have to say, like, when it comes to merchandising, like, it doesn't mean that you have to compromise. It just means that when you put into activation a piece to merchandise, it has to, you can make a correlation and not necessarily a one-for-one piece. So to say that the piece that goes into merchandise or retail can be referential of a runway piece, but that's not to tell him how to run his business or whatever strategies to use. I can be hired for that, but just so to say, the value.
So if you want a consultant, hire me.
No, but I just see very much a big amount of value in what they bring, and I think parts of their brand as necessary, especially the political activism part. But when I see the writing on the wall, I do have to say something. This in turn is kind of how the Grace Wells Bonner conversation started, didn't it? Like it was actually on one of your lives like 2-3 years ago. So it's like I'm not doing anything new. It's just one of those things where it's like, who is the Grace Wells Bonner customer? Such like this.
But
Like,
do you know the crazy thing? Since
go on.
then, I feel like Grace Wells Bonner has honestly skyrocketed.
Exactly.
She has
And like,
skyrocketed
yeah,
since we had that
in
conversation.
comparison, like, but didn't she like hone down into a certain sector and adapt
She
the way
did.
that she was designing?
She
Like
did.
she actually made clothes for men that exist today. Like, because I remember that she made like sheer fabric, I think almost chiffon with ruffles, like white shirts that men were wearing in her collections. And then now she's like, she's cottagecore. She's cottagecore for black men, and that's fire. But anyways, I digress. Lisi and Rushemy, I do believe
Yeah.
to be valuable, but their merchandise may leave something to be desired, and they should have like various stockists, and I don't see why they couldn't be part of the DSM DNA, if not Machine A. That being said, though, like there's other stockists that exist that they could be valuable to, and I just wonder whether the writing is on the wall with this Reebok collab. That's my thing. But yeah, we can talk about the collection.
Yeah. And I think just general info for people that don't know much about Botter, it's run and co-founded by Rushemy Botter and his partner Lisi Herrebrugh. So a lot of their ideas are inspired by their Caribbean background. So Rushemy Botter is actually from Curacao and Lisi is from the Dominican Republic. So they actually have an aesthetic and they refer to their clothes as Caribbean couture. And what they mean by that, it refers to like this sensibility of their clothes that comes from this sustainability ethos and nautical inspired designs, which is inspired obviously by their Caribbean backgrounds. And it's also a reference obviously to where they're from. So they're doing a lot of things when it comes to sustainability. They have a coral farm with a diving school that's actually funded by them. And they also use it to develop biotextiles, but they also just use it to clean the ocean. And they've been nursing coral reefs. And I find it really crazy that a fashion brand is going that out of their way to try and like better the environment when they're such a small brand. They're not the problem, where you have these massive corporations and massive companies like H&M and stuff that literally pollute the oceans by the minute. And they don't have any like sensible initiatives. And then you have these brands that are self-funding these projects. I'm surprised that, bigger companies aren't on board, aren't trying to help. It just shows like who actually cares about these things and who thinks of sustainability from a marketing standpoint, if that makes sense. Someone's talking about the water bubble thing. Yeah, the water bubble thing was just a commentary on like the different plastics that are put into the ocean, but it was a very theatrical way of like showing it, which is why it became really popular on Instagram. And so even like a lot of their collections are either an ode to, racism, or an ode to colonialism, or even an ode to pollution, a commentary on extinction of different aquatic species, and sometimes they might reference their cultural heritage as well. So many different themes that goes through their work. But to quote what they've said, they said, "Fashion is a reflection of the times we live in, and if we want to be in the current times, we shouldn't limit ourselves to just garments." And that was what they were saying in terms of why they have a coral farm with a diving school and why they're so committed on doing things past just making clothes, if that makes a lot of sense. Now, this collection in particular, I think was not... There's definitely older collections that I prefer from them. I think this collection was definitely more commercial. And I think they even said it. I have a quote from Lisi, I think. She said, "We felt like this collection needed to be grounded on earth. We defined and redefined our silhouettes, and this made us focus on the details. We feel this is the most wearable collection we have made until now." Not necessarily that it being wearable, it being commercial is like a bad thing. But just in terms of like what I personally prefer I definitely prefer like past collections I've seen from them.
Wait, what'd you say about it?
Like
Based on
it's not
past
like
collections?
no, I said it's not like like me preferring other collections means that this is like inherently worse or anything along
Oh
those
yeah,
lines.
no. I just didn't hear you properly. So you're saying like
Yeah.
it's not, yeah. So same. Everything.
Yeah. It's just
Like,
more commercial than what I normally see from Botter.
yeah.
And they said it themselves. Because there are many like themes, obviously, like the Reebok collab you've talked about. They have their polo shirts that are like signatures, and they worked on that with the Reebok collab. Of course, we see like the caps that they always have. Something they're also really known for is having, you know, like the shoe on a shoe, or just
Yeah.
like layering pieces in general. So they have like a shoe on a shoe, or they have like a hat on a hat, or a trouser on a trouser. Those kind of things. Like even this blazer, for example, is like a multi-layered fabric blazer. That's kind of what they do. And then there are a lot of raw hems and raw edges with a lot of the pieces in this collection. But aside from that, I don't think there were, you know, many themes of interest. Of course, they have printed on a lot of the pieces Caribbean couture in sort of the font of, what's that beer company that's in that font again?
Wait,
Carlsberg. There we go. It's Carlsberg. And then they also have different odes to their sustainability goals. Like they have a hoodie and a pair of tracksuits that has the Shell logo and it says hell. And obviously everyone knows that Shell is one of the huge polluters of the oceans, and the oceans are things that they're trying to protect. So of course it makes a lot of sense for them to have a flip on the Shell logo that says hell. I'm actually surprised that they're allowed to do that. I'm surprised they haven't been hit by a lawsuit from Shell, angry lawsuit saying we're going to sue you for using our logo. How dare you paint us in a bad light? I'm
Cease and
surprised that
desist.
hasn't happened.
Yeah. Big cease and desist.
But yeah, they're just amazing designers because, like Rushemy Botter, for example, he actually always wanted to be like a creative person for years, and I think he didn't have any like he didn't know where he was going to be, and he didn't see fashion as a viable career, even though he was a creative person. So he actually joined the army. And then he said in interviews that his time in the army was when he was like flicking through magazines. And then he found out about the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp. He found out about Walter van Beirendonck. And then from there, he was like really interested, like, oh, I really want to be a fashion designer. Now I can see that this is something viable for you to do. His experience is kind of the experience of everyone in diaspora, where parents just think you should either be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or like you're a failure. That's why he didn't see, you know, being a creative as a viable career. So after he found out about the Royal Academy of Fine Arts, he actually went to a technical school for 4 years before applying to the Royal Academy of Fine Arts, where he did a BA under Walter van Beirendonck, and he did an MA under Dirk van Sane. For people that don't know, the Royal Academy of Fine Arts, Walter van Beirendonck was head of the fashion department, and Dirk van Sane, who is Walter van Beirendonck's partner, and they're both part of the Antwerp Six, heads the MA course. So he worked under those guys, and then, of course, became what he is today. But amazing brand, amazing styling. The clothes are always good. They talk about very serious topics through their clothes, which I really like. And it's not empty activism. Sometimes a lot of designers have commentaries on things, but outside of the commentary, they don't do anything to help those initiatives, or they're not really involved in the initiatives in any way. And that's something I've always loved and respected about Botter, that they're actually in the thick of things. When they talk about, you know, having a logo on Shell and saying that it's hell because they pollute the oceans, these are people that are nursing coral reefs. These aren't just what most designers do. Like, oh my God, this is happening. Let me show you some clothes. Let me sell you some $1,000 hoodies and then move on from it and not help it in any way, or, you know, put money in any of the initiatives or help in those ways. So that's something I've always really respected about Botter. But anyway, Dami, I've rambled enough. What are your thoughts?
No, I can only really echo your sentiment, right? Like that's Impulse what I was saying at the beginning. Great designers, like the references are very on the nose, obviously, but just to say, it's like they add value to their collections, to their brand, to their ethos, by being able to be sellable and wearable to a wider audience, right? And that is just good business generally. So I can never complain when I see it for certain people, but like obviously they're trying to intermingle the two. Like I really like the hat, the deconstructed hat. I think there was a hat of this kind in the previous collection where it was like fully destroyed. It was like cut into 4 pieces and then stitched back together. And like,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that is fire. Like, you know, and then they've got the trainers and the shoes and all of the other things, right, that are attached to it. And then the thing that's part of their ethos now, I believe it's like fishing wire or like netting where it's like weaved into this intricate vest, like and dresses. And I think some of them have jackets as well, but like all of these things, like so it is the Scooby Doo. Do you remember in school where like the girls used to have the Scooby Doo and there's like 4 pieces of thread and then
Yeah.
I was thinking this reminds me of a Scooby Doo and it's literally called that. It's literally
Yeah.
called there's one called the Voodoo Red Scooby Doo knit. Yo,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're referential
That is
culture
actually the inspiration point of it.
and
Yeah.
and
That's
how
why it looks like they're threads hanging from all across the piece. Yeah.
Yeah, and I value that. I value their referential nature of Britishness as well as like I've never heard it called a Scooby Doo. By the way, I'm stuck on that. I was meant to be stuck, but but yeah, like that, the hat, the bags, the shoes, all merchandisable items that can help them grow their business and just continue doing the good work that they're doing. To be honest.
Yeah, I'm like I really love what they do. Of course, this collection in particular I definitely prefer a lot of other collections I've seen. Like they said, this is their most wearable, this is their most commercial. I'm not really mad at that. Ultimately, brands need to sell. Brands have financial goals that they need to hit. And if this helps, I mean, Botter is a brand that is wearable anyway. The tailoring is always interesting, but it's wearable anyway. But it's not basic wearable. And something about like they might make tracksuits or whatever, but someone like Rushemy Botter, who comes from such a technical background, like literally going to technical school for years before he felt like he could talk to Walter van Beurendonck and apply because he thought that was the level he needed to be at, has created such a very skilled designer. And so everything he does is precise. Even if he makes a tracksuit, it's precise. It's not just a tracksuit. Or, like when people try to reduce things, they're like, oh, it's streetwear. It's like, just because it's a tracksuit does not, depending on what you mean by streetwear, but everything can be precise. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I hate when people try to be reductive, but
because people are like, that's why I hate that word streetwear. I can't lie. Depending on how you use it, because to me, streetwear is just what people actually wear. But then
exactly.
what people say is like, streetwear is like, when people say it has very urban sensibilities. You know what they mean when they say that?
Yeah,
it's very urban.
Yeah.
Very, very urban.
Urban is crazy. Urban is crazy. Yeah, they're wilding for that one. I'll be real.
Urban sensibilities.
They mean it big.
It's a codified way of saying something else. If you know, you know.
NIGG-ish, you get me?
A lot of urban clothes in that collection, weren't there? A lot of urban things, weren't there?
Yeah. It reminds me of just a really rough and like raw, unfiltered, like you're doing a lot right now. You're doing a lot. Very rough around the edges. Yeah. Get out of here.
Someone said capital U. It's different when it's the opening line of the article.
Her hair is so unprofessional. It's just so a bit unprofessional. Yeah, that's another one as well.
Yeah. Urban with the hard ER.
Yeah, trust me. Trust me.
Urban. It's very
urban and crazy.
What do you think of the collection? I thought it was was many things of interest. I saw, some very urban sensibilities. It's very interesting, though.
No.
These are some pictures of some of the footwear from, the Reebok collab. It's very interesting. Once again, talking about football and like the return of like AstroTurfs as a fashion staple and an actual fashion piece is very interesting. I love to see it. The last time I wore AstroTurfs with jeans was probably when I was in primary school. I must have been like 9 or 8 years old, but I used to wear that all the time because for all you rich kids, let me tell you how it is growing up like me, right? So when I was younger, because obviously my feet used to grow too fast because just a growing kid, and my parents were not rich as hell, so I had one shoe a year. My parents would be like, okay, this shoe that we're buying you, this has to last you the year. So pick wisely because you've only got one shoe, which is why I'd end up buying AstroTurfs because I can wear my AstroTurfs with jeans. I can wear my AstroTurfs at PE. I can wear my AstroTurfs in the playground to play football. It's the most versatile shoe. So for me, AstroTurfs are life. They're literally the do-it-all type shoe. So now that I see these things being brought back, it's kind of really, really nice to see.
Yeah.
Obviously, rich kids don't know about that lifestyle, having one shoe for a year. They'll be like,
what?
what? Oh my God, oh my God, I had no idea that people only had one pair of shoes for my God.
I got my shoe for shoes on for £12. That's what I did.
Tiempo AstroTurf. Oh my God. I had Total 90 AstroTurfs. If you guys know about the Total 90s, hey.
Yeah, no, the Gazelles. What's the Adidas one called as well?
They had like Predator AstroTurfs. They had they had all sorts, but the Predators were the main ones.
The Predators.
The Predator AstroTurfs.
Yo, no man, people moving. They moved
that was
units
it.
with that one. Chokehold. They had a generation of chokehold.
Oh yes. Talking about urban, it's ghetto chic.
Ghetto chic.
Ghetto chic.
Wait, who came up with that again? That's what it's kind of like.
Ghetto chic. Fashion is messed up, bro. I'm telling you, fashion is messed up. The way that they describe things is scary. It's very
that they describe
ghetto chic.
What's her name's collections? Phoebe's.
So yeah. So my critique was that going back to a lot of people in fashion not having range or just not understanding things. Someone said something, I think it was Tim Blanks actually, said something along the lines of like, Phoebe Philo was ghetto chic before ghetto chic. And I'm just like, mate, I love you as a journalist, but delete that sentence. Like, that makes no sense.
Yeah. No,
whatever ghetto chic means. If you're saying what woman used to wear on the street, she's still not that. Yeah. If you're saying ghetto chic in terms of like a synonym for like saying black people, she's still not that. Like any way you spin it, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, like he was wilding for that one. Love him.
No, he was. I love Tim Blanks. I've met him personally too. I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best journalists of our generation. But that statement though, nah.
That's jokes. No. Oh man, what else is there, bro? It's now 22:30. Is there anything else?
But yeah, that's really the Botter collection. I think if people have like questions to ask, we can do a quick, last ditch Q&A, and then we can head out. And then you guys can tune in on Thursday for more show reviews.
Thursday, yeah. Let me see my calendar.
Phoebe's ghetto had no black models.
Oh yeah, that's the other part of that one, isn't it? That's the actual extra funny bit on that.
Yeah, one. Sounds like, didn't they call the aesthetic ghetto fabulous during hip hop's bling era in the 2000s? I'm gonna start saying suburban elegance. Suburban elegance.
Wait. Oh yeah, I'm
yeah, she was. She didn't have any black models in all of her shows until a big article came out in the New York Times, and like Iman and other people, like activist models, started talking about it, and then suddenly black models are on the runway.
Didn't she say something like
She doesn't want to feel forced to use models that she doesn't want to use, is what she said. She doesn't want to feel forced. I just think it's weird. I think so there's two conversations to have about Phoebe Philo, right? There's one conversation which is like, it's her brand. She can do whatever she wants to do with her brand, and she can, you know, market her brand however she sees fit. But what made it weird about how against using black models she was the fact that black people, she had a lot of black customers, and a lot of black celebrities are what made her famous. Like Kanye West wore Celine, and like it became huge, especially amongst men. That's when you started seeing men wearing a lot of Phoebe Philo. You see Pharrell Williams wearing a lot of the women's wear collections and stuff. So I just thought it was really weird when you have a famous black person like Kanye West who like made you really popular in like pop culture outside of like a tiny fashion niche. And, you know, you have like a lot of black customers that buy your stuff. It's not, if like no black people are buying your stuff, there's no correlation between your brand and black people, maybe I could see why you don't want to market your brand that way. But it was just how against it she was. I just thought it was a bit weird. So what's you on now? Thursdays and Sundays live streams. Yeah, I try to do live streams now. That's my New Year's resolution, 2 live streams a year. You guys will let me know if you enjoy the live streams, if you get a lot of information, and if you also enjoy like when I clip the live streams into videos for people that can't follow the really long streams. Let me know how you guys feel about it. Micah, you're behind on videos. She's on your neck. Micah, where are the videos? We need more videos, bro. We need more videos, Micah. What's going on?
Oh, that's nice. These live streams are a vibe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you guys enjoy these live streams. Ogaga says, but fame doesn't translate to a core audience, but to them it's a fear of being alienated by the bourgeoisie. I mean, yeah, fame definitely doesn't necessarily translate to sales. In terms of Kanye West, I would say it does. It just doesn't all the time. But what I also will say is that this whole, like, I get that people might be scared that, oh, the bourgeoisie don't want to be associated with so-and-so, but I would beg to differ. I think that a lot of modern culture and everything that happens is almost always, especially nowadays, inspired by what Black Americans do. So you have all these like rich white people that want to be cool. So they wait for like Black Americans to do things, and then they hop onto the trends like 5 million years late. So if anything, they're not trying to be separated from that. They're actually like chasing after trying to be cool and being very far behind.
Yeah, no. That's real.
That's why like everything is to do with like Black America. If you think of like even down to like body trends, let's not even talk about fashion. The fact people getting BBLs and like stabbing their lips with needles to make them bigger, that is to do with the Kardashians, which is a trend following how Black like women actually are. That's what I'm saying. So if they wanted to be so against bourgeoisie, was so against, you know, Black culture and all that stuff, they wouldn't be stabbing their lips with fucking needles and making their lips look bloated if that wasn't what they were going for. So I just personally don't think that it's actually a thing that the bourgeoisie want to be, you know, far away from like everyday culture. I think it's a fallacy, even though people think that that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they integrate it into mainstream, and then it's Black roots are erased, like cowboys, zoot suits, EC, many of the things we talked about today. Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. What did Kelly say? Botter, Tebe Maguga, I'd like to see more support for. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Tebe. I did a whole fanzine about Tebe Magugu, and I have like videos on Tebe's work. Yeah, huge fan of Tebe.
Big fan of Tebe.
He said they're kind of reversing the BBL. I don't know. Can you reverse a BBL? I know you can, like, obviously dissolve your lip fillers. How do you reverse a BBL?
I think it's like because it's fat transfer. I think it's just a fat removal, but I'm not a surgeon, so.
Isn't that because, you know, like, obviously BBL, well, I don't know too much about this stuff, to be fair, but all I know is that BBLs are really dangerous
Yeah.
because if you inject the wrong place, the fat can be injected into your bloodstream, it goes to your heart, and you get cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
So I could imagine the same risks could probably happen with extracting it too.
The fat cells also die, right? So you have dying fat in your ass and other places in your body, and that can infect you also, which is why you have to massage it for such a long time. Oh, shout out to Ozempic, man. Not shout out to Ozempic, but yeah. I believe it was it started as diabetes medication, and then they found out that it lost weight, and then now people are taking this diabetes. Like, it's literally like rampant. Like, as much as America talks about, like, people protest of America's pharmaceutical industry. Yeah, a lot of people use the pharmaceuticals for the wrong purposes, which is is wild.
Which is crazy. Can you imagine the side effects?
Yeah, that's.
Can you actually imagine the side effects just to lose weight? Like, you're willing to, like, damn near destroy your body.
It's not just women.
That's insane. Like, do you know how insane that is? Why are people always, obviously this is like after hours, so we're just talking about random shit, but like, why is it that, like, people are always looking for shortcuts, especially with, like, weight loss? Why would you be willing to inject yourself with a diabetes? Like, why? Bro, that's crazy. That's crazy. People in the world are.
Yo, the whole chat is saying shout out to Ozempic, and I'm actually about that was.
That's what you said, man. That's what you said.
No, but it was like.
Man said shout out.
No, man. Yeah,
that's crazy.
I've heard about what's happening up in America still. Like, yeah. And to be honest, like, yeah, so many men also are taking Ozempic and getting liposuction as well now also. So it's like,
good lord,
there's actually a liposuction body that men have that you can tell when they've actually got liposuction, which is
good lord,
the most interesting part about that.
Do you know the thing that I don't understand? The thing I don't understand is that, like, I don't know. I mean, I think these things are deeper than obviously I give it credit for. Maybe because I don't think about these things. Like, to be very honest, like, when it comes to things like weight loss, for example, if I was to use myself as an example, like, when I lose weight rapidly is when I'm constantly going to the gym and, like, not eating, like, tons and tons of food. And when I'm doing up Mr. Gordon Ramsay in my house and doing up Chef of the Year is when I gain more weight. So I can see the correlation. If I wanted to lose weight, I'll just go to the gym more and eat slightly healthier. I don't even need to eat that healthy. I can still eat other things and still lose weight. So this whole thing, maybe it's just impatience. This whole thing about, like, literally going to the extent of, like, injecting yourself with stuff, like, doing the most toxic things is just mad. And also with these surgeries, you're not actually getting rid of the symptom, because when you actually lose weight healthily and slowly, which is how you should lose weight, your hormones change, your body adapts to that weight loss, which is why you can keep it off for longer. If you just remove fat, you haven't changed any of the symptoms. You're still eating the same way, living your life the same way. You're probably just going to end up back in square one. Then you're just going to have to keep injecting yourself with the same thing, because you haven't had a lifestyle change that would, make you lose weight long term. You've just injected yourself with something, or you've just removed fat from somewhere. That's not helpful at all. I don't know why people do that.
They get the band also. I forgot to add that one. They also get the band, and do the skinny surgery. So they get the band, they do the liposuction, and then they become fitness influencers, which is funny.
Yeah, it's weird, man.
I'm not making none of this up. You know me.
It's weird.
this is the like cultural studies is the most interesting thing that I've never took part in at all. I don't have a degree in this, nothing. But yeah, shout out to Ozempic, man.
Every time, shout out to Ozempic.
Wait, is it staying in the live, by the way? When you, it's not, is it?
It is, but no one's gonna watch it. To be fair, I can delete it if you want me to. Just message, remind me because I might forget. Remind me.
No, because
and I'll cut it out after the stream. I do, but if I can be, but and also if a live stream is more than I think 3 hours long, then you can't do that, and we're slowly approaching that.
But no. Then we're gonna get you an Ozempic sponsorship. Maybe then I can live in my 6-figure house, 7-figure house with a 6-figure salary. I could never. Yeah, no, I have too many notes for Ozempic, fam.
Ozempic sponsorship is crazy. But anyway, so many influencers promote such problematic things. Like, you know, all these influencers that will be like, I got my BBL from so-and-so clinic. Daddy, that is a mad thing to promote, bro. Such a like deadly procedure to be promoting it willy-nilly like that.
Yeah.
Without talking at length about all the drawbacks that could potentially occur, to me is insane.
Yes, and the thing is, it's still a deadly procedure, even if you do go to a really good doctor. So the fact that the doctor is safer than other doctors is even like, all for some flat tummy tea. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? But what I would also say is that now shout out to influencers, man, because they
Yo, some influencers literally have no integrity. It's scary, bro. They're just like, oh, money? Yeah, I'm gonna promote. I don't care if it's gonna kill 5 people tomorrow. Money?
I don't know how to do that.
Bring the money. I cannot be like that, bro.
Because like, especially if you're like a miscellaneous influencer, like you're just famous for like nothing. Like you'll go for anything, bro.
Yo, the flat tummy tea was crazy because like anyone that knows anything about weight loss is you can't pick and choose where to lose fat from. It's all about genetics. Some people gain weight in their arms, some people don't, some people gain it in their legs, some people don't. Like, and so when you lose weight, when you lose fat from where your body genetically gains the fat. So if you're someone that is likely to gain most of your fat in your legs, when you lose weight, you'll start losing weight from your legs. So that whole idea that, oh, this tummy tea is going to remove fat from your tummy, it's just like these companies, man, they get away with BS.
Yeah, the tummy in the tea, like what it means is that it's going to give you the pee-pee. Do number 2. That's what that means.
Which has nothing to do with losing fat.
At all.
So...
Also, the girls that lose the cling film and start going to sauna and running.
Oh, the cling film. Yo, yeah. I forgot about that. The cling film is crazy. The cling film one was insane. That one was insane. That was insane.
Cling film stock went up, fam. Like, but to be fair, I'm not gonna lie though. I have been naturally slim all my life. So I don't know the hardships mentally that some of these people go through. Like, as much as like I do have some hardships in gaining weight just based on my medical condition, that's not to say that it's the exact same as someone who like eats like a regular person and just bloats and gains weight super, super quick. So I don't want to undermine like the struggle of what they go through mentally.
Yeah, obviously it's like a massive issue. Like there are people who actually genetically are predisposed to like gaining weight extremely easily. That isn't like majority of people, however, but there are people that are like that.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with their lifestyle, like what they're doing, for example. But for majority of people that you see drinking tummy teas and stuff, that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I can use myself as an example. I gain weight easily and I also lose weight easily. So I can clearly see if I'm doing up Mr. Gordon Ramsay, like I said, in my house, doing up fancy meals that are 3,000 calories. I gain weight. It's just what happens. And then the second I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let me go to the gym more. I lose weight. It's not like rocket science. I think people overcomplicate these things sometimes. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, I come from the side of not being able to gain weight at all. Obviously, it's like medically inclined, but yeah. But like, I've literally been lean my whole life. I don't know the struggles anybody goes through from. So yeah, but I can't like gain weight. Like, it's just really hard. Well, not that I can't gain weight. Sorry, it's just really hard for me to gain weight. So yeah.
The guy's still fighting about Martine Rose.
Okay, no. Seeing as well, Martine Rose again. Is there anything else that somebody dumb said that was like way back? I just like, okay, here's the thing about me, right? Because someone said something about me and talk about strategy. I really like fashion businesses that I like, and I like them to stay afloat and stay in business. And one of the things I did when I was like in my early 20s was just like learn marketing and then learn business development. So I'm just and this was like when I was 23, right? So I was leading a team of like 10 people, like 12, but let's just say 10. If with business development, so my eye at 23, so that's my eye is just inclined to think about product. So yeah, that's just like one of my things. Like I think about how many ways can this business gain business off this one product? I mean, this business gain profit off this one product. That's just kind of the thing. So like now when I'm in fashion and it's something that I really, really love, the reason why I don't do that anymore is because like if it's a product that I don't like, I don't feel any inclination to like help that business better. But in fashion, it's like obviously really useful. So like when I see a product, I know how to merchandise it properly. I was literally having a conversation with like a couple of designers this past week about that. Like right now, like I work with 3 designers that are doing this. But yeah.
People are asking about the Kiko show. I haven't seen it.
But we've
Did you
got
see it?
Kiko in the lineup, right?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, we can quickly see it and then jump off so you can cut the thing. But like,
yeah, I mean we have a lineup of brands we're going to cover with each live stream. So don't worry, guys. We'll get to it eventually. We'll definitely get to it eventually in a stream.
Wait, your retention is crazy. 150 people have been in there for like the past 2 hours, I think.
Hey, thank you guys for being interested in the stream. That's why I love my audience. Subscribe to the Patreon. Sub to the Patreon if you want that fashion history stuff. My Patreon link is in the description. If you guys are interested, don't feel forced, but if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe.
Yeah, I'll probably relaunch my Patreon soon again. But outside of that,
again,
a video may come.
May? When last did you post the video on YouTube?
2 years ago. No, I posted. Well, my short film I posted like September.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I've been literally in the business world. I've been doing.
Yeah, these streams are fun. I think so when 2024 happened, I thought I was thinking to myself, how can I differentiate myself from everyone else on YouTube? Because it's like this niche of like analyzing runway shows and stuff. Even though when I started it, I was the only person doing it. It has become like a lot of people do it now. So I have to find ways to like. He's like, ooh, yeah, I was the first. Sorry, not sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
You sucking yourself off.
So anyway, I was thinking, how can I differentiate myself? And the difference is like live streams, because then we can talk about the shows in depth in a way that you don't see in other places. And when I say I was the first person to do it, I mean as an individual. There are platforms that did it before me, like Show Studio. So not the first in terms of ever, but the first in terms of like an individual.
Yeah, we're facing the camera. No, like low production value, just on, you know what I'm saying?
What do you
It's-
want me to say? I mean, you are standout quality wise, even if the others are doing it, it's not comparable. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. There's definitely people that are doing it on at a really high standard, like people like Understitch, people like Fashion Lover 4, even though I don't know where Fashion Lover 4 went. I think Fashion Lover 4 is like Fashion Lover 4 went to like fashion school. So Fashion Lover 4 is like kind of gone back with the fashion content. But I think his stuff is really, really high quality too. Who else is I have to open my subscription
He
list.
conducts
I mean,
show studio
Tuba.
panels.
Yeah, I do show studio panels sometimes. Tuba Avalon is also another example of someone that, you know, does fashion analysis really well. Although her perspective is more from like styling and like the styling of things. Oh, Ryan Finn is sensational. Ryan Finn is so good. Ryan Finn is
I swear.
so good. She's so good.
I thought
Ryan
her
is
name was
sensational.
Rian, not Ryan. Oh my days.
Actually, I don't actually know. Maybe it is Rian, but I've always said Ryan Finn. I think it's Ryan Finn. I don't know. But Ryan Finn is like sensational. Sensational. There's so many people that actually do it well, and also so many people that I won't mention that do it terribly. But this is not a negative stream, so I'll only mention the people I like.
But yeah.
Okay,
no,
Micah said it's Ryan. Yeah, Ryan Finn is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Finn is.
She just sits there and can talk.
Ryan is.
And then stops the camera, edits a little bit, and posts, and it's beautiful. It's poetry in motion, really.
Ryan is like Ryan. Obviously, Ryan is more consistent on like TikTok, IG Reels, all that sort of stuff. But Ryan does post on YouTube from time to time, and Ryan just sits in front of the camera, and just like all the thoughts that come to Ryan's mind, Ryan just like lets them out, and it's always so interesting to listen to. Always, I just think Ryan has a very, very analytical mind, and it makes for really, really good takes on fashion.
Yeah, she does her thing still. It's like how
Ryan is good. If you guys don't, I'll put Ryan on the screen, by the way, so you guys can follow Ryan, just in case you don't know who she is. But Ryan is like, and I hope I'm not misgendering Ryan, by the way. If you guys, what are Ryan's preferred pronouns, by the way? Let me find out.
Nigga. That's what I prefer.
Whoa. Hey yo. Hey yo.
No,
hey yo.
Ryan a real one from. You understand?
Okay, Ryan uses they them. Okay. Okay.
Cool. Shout out to Ryan.
Shout out to Ryan for real. Shout out to Ryan.
Not like any other shout out that I did today. Like this, the real shout out.
Hey yo, he said, and said.
Why is everyone going yo?
That pronouns.
Look what
you said.
When you do it, people think that I'm being serious. Now it sounds like an insult.
You said their preferred pronouns are that nigga. So
have you never heard that?
I was like, hey yo, no, I've heard it. I'm just joking around. That's why I said, hey yo.
Yo, no. Anyway,
I just wanted the chat to be on your neck.
Yo, damn. That getting clipped up. Shout out to Ryan, though. Their essays.
No, like serious essays. Serious.
Yeah,
serious video essays.
700K
like no other.
views on one video.
Ryan, hey, shout out. And Ryan has been on YouTube forever because that video is 10 years old.
10 years old.
So like Ryan has been on YouTube before like I even considered making a YouTube channel for real. Like Ryan has been about for a long
how old is
time.
Ryan? 10 years ago.
Ryan is 30. I think they turned 30 recently. I think I remember them tweeting about turning 30 or something like that.
Yeah. I think I saw. Well, I've barely been on Twitter for like, and it's not even Twitter anymore. But yeah,
Right.
not. But anyways, I actually do have to dip though. Now we can't even
Yeah,
catch it live.
I think Urban with the ER is going to be an inside joke on the stream.
No,
Very,
we're the urban
very urban.
gang
Urban.
gang.
But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for
Absolutely.
tuning in. I actually need to.
Wait, what about
we need to
cutting room
head
floor?
out.
We forgot about Omondi.
Oh yeah, Rachel Mondi. Before we
Oh
go,
my
cutting
God.
room floor, and I think Rachel Mondi has rebranded now because Rachel Mondi like had that really viral interview of like
With Mos Def.
Yeah, Mos Def saying that, you know, Drake, so many SKUs,
So many SKUs.
barcodes, so many SKUs.
So many SKUs.
Look at the story.
Crazy for her. I know that.
Yeah. I know she's making crazy money on Patreon because everyone wants to see that full interview, but that was crazy. They're like, so many SKUs, so many barcodes. That was insane. This mall has everything. That was insane. So many SKUs. That was crazy.
That's wild.
But I love Rachel though. Rachel is also another example of someone who kind of, you know, interviews people, has a really, really good mind about things. So like I said, I'm not the only one. I might just be the only one that does it in the form of live streams. But there's many people that I can mention that like analyze fashion and I'm big fans of, and they do it in really, really good ways.
You're one of the only people that does live stream runway shows. I know that's a fact.
Yeah, definitely.
The only other person to do it was like me.
Oh, Micah said you want to look up Rachel Mondi. Her podcast is called The Cutting Room Floor. She just opened a YouTube channel actually, so you can see the Mos Def thing about Drake on her YouTube channel.
All right, now I'm actually done because obviously.
Yeah. We actually do need to go. It's like getting late. It's like past 11 p.m. in the UK right now. So it's approaching bedtime. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back on Thursday. So I'll see you guys till then.
All right, peace.
Peace.